Hello and welcome to Vtuber Talk. I'm your host Jay and thank you so much for joining us this evening. For those of you who haven't been here before, Vtuber Talk is designed after classic late night talk shows. Everything here is live, casual, and the goal is to simply have fun conversations that will entertain people who are already familiar with the guest while still being accessible for new fans. Please welcome my guest for this evening. I'm going to try my best to do this right the first time. Marie Deleuve, aka Eggy.
Eggy. Honestly, just go with Eggy. Go with Eggy.
I was not brave enough to attempt the full and proper name in the pre-recorded intro.
It's okay. Very few people are.
But
there's nothing that scares an English
in.
speaker
Yes.
more than 3 vowels in a row.
It's true. It's so true. Language is weird. But welcome on in, Eggy. So happy to have you here this evening. I can tell from all of the wonderful nice egg spin emotes that we had in the pre-show that folks here are already familiar with you. But for anyone who might not be, if you can introduce yourself.
Hi, I am Eggy. I am nice Eggy. I am nice, and I am an Eggy. I usually play comfy games and mahjong, and I usually will sing sometimes. And that's about it. That's about it.
You do something, Eggy, that many people do, or at least they start to do. You know, people talk about New Year's resolutions and sticking to a plan, sticking to a schedule. I'm not sure if it has its roots in Japanese idol culture. I think it does. Someone could fact check me on that, but it then also became a thing in VTubing. The classic good morning and good night posts. Good number of people do that. Many people start it. Very few people keep up with it over time. You, however, have the most consistent good morning, good night posts of any VTuber that I have ever seen, and you have really made them your own. They are the classic slep and a whack posts. How far back does that go? Do you remember when you first started that? And, you know, was there somebody that you saw doing that and you said, oh, I want to do that thing? Or what's the origin of what is now the really long-running, really consistent posts?
So I think I started shortly before my birthday in 2022. Yeah. So it was May of 2022. I think a few days before my birthday, that was the first Slepawack. It started with just the Slep and the Awack, so I only had the 2 pictures, and then I added more to have variants for like the good and bad and panicked Awacks. And then I think I have a few Christmas or like holiday ones. So I think I have a Christmas one. I have a New Year's one. I have did I make any other holiday? Oh, I think I had a Halloween one. They're all just edits of the same picture.
Yeah.
They're all edits of the same picture. But originally, I think I did it because I think it was Clavio. Yeah, it was Clavio, who used to have this, like, Guten Morgen and Gute Nacht. Like, I think she had that ages ago. And it was pretty much just, like, a little illustration of her, like, sleeping, and then another one of her, like, sitting up in bed. And I think I have blatantly stolen the concept and kept it going for the last, like, we're gonna be going on 3 years of Slepawack. I feel like that's going to be more of an occasion, like more than my birthday, more than my like streaming anniversary. Like the 3rd anniversary of Slepawack is going to be, I'm gonna need to do something for that.
I feel like maybe you do a variation art on that itself, just something for the actual anniversary, that it has its own birthday, its own celebration, or maybe that's when you do a just sleeping stream.
just sleeping. I don't know. I've considered doing like because like one of the things I've been thinking about when it comes to merch is that like most of the art I have is drawn by other people, but the Slepawax was entirely just drawn by me. So I'm like, if I wanted to just make like a sticker or something of Slepawack, like I could just do that. Like there's no.
You could do one of those square acrylics for those.
Oh yeah, like a Slepawack keychain.
Yeah,
well, also
keychain,
too, like,
and it could be double-sided. One side is Slep, one side is a whack.
Actually, you know what? That would probably be possible as well if I wanted, because like the other thing too is because they are the same picture, they would be the same shape, and if I just make the background transparent, I could probably do like an acrylic in the correct shape. That's not a bad idea, actually. Just Slepawack keychain.
If you're able to get a really good manufacturer, you could have it actually fully shaped to, the flowers and the little futon, but it'd probably just be
Yeah,
easiest,
yeah.
make it a square, have it the full thing, and that, like you were saying, just have that back area be transparent.
Slep and a whack. But yeah, I actually have like, let me change it to the pajama outfit. Because I actually got this outfit specifically because of Slep a Whack.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so this is pretty much based on items I actually have. So these pajamas are a set of pajamas that I actually own in real life. They're frilly pajamas with eggs on them. And then this headband is like, just like I mean, the one I have in real life is like just one of those headbands that you use for keeping hair out of your face when you're washing your face. But I didn't want to just have a naked head. I didn't want to have like a naked head for my pajamas. So I put that one on too. But plus I think I'm wearing it in the Slep a Whack pictures as well. So this outfit, this was directly, if there was no Slep a Whack, this entire outfit probably wouldn't exist.
Well, we actually have right here the famous Slep a Whack pictures, at least the base models, shall we say.
Yes, the primary Slep a Whacks.
Did you draw these or did you draw these and have these as part of your very first Slep a Whack posts, or did these come after the post started becoming consistent?
I believe they were there from the beginning. I think there might be a few Slep a Whack posts where I just put the word slep or a whack because for some reason I couldn't find the pictures. But yeah, they were there. I believe the Slep a Whacks were there. The images were there from the beginning, I think.
Mm-hmm. They're very good images. They're very cute, very fun, very nice thing to see when you go to sleep and wake up.
Yeah, I know it's something a lot of people have complimented me on, but I guess it's the one thing I've been able to do consistently. Like, even when I've been away, even when I've been on vacation, even when I've been like on hiatus or busy, I still post them. Like, I'm still slepping and a whacking.
As
like,
one does.
Yeah, as one does. And I think we talked about this before, but every single one, I think there's only been once or twice where I've scheduled a Slep a Whack.
Yes.
All the Slep a Whacks are 100% genuine. Like, this is like before I go to bed I post one, and then when I wake up I post one. I think the only time I've scheduled them is when I'm like on an airplane or something. I think I scheduled one when I was coming back from Japan because I knew I would be on the plane. But that's the only one I think I've ever scheduled ahead of time. Every single other one is like pure, organic, in the moment Slep a Whack.
Manually done Slep a Whack post.
Yeah, manually. This 90-year-old diner still posts the Slep a Whacks the old-fashioned way.
Yeah. Definitely, I actually did an international flight myself recently, and no, I'm not going to pay whatever absurd rate the airline is charging just to make one post. So, I think of all the times for a very justified, pre-scheduled Slep a Whack post, international flight's gonna do it.
Yeah, I think I paid for airplane Wi-Fi once. And like, to be fair, it was like a 9-hour flight, so I guess it might have been kind of worth it. But the thing is that the way they had it is that it was made for video, right? So like, if you wanted to watch YouTube, it would load YouTube super well. But if you wanted to like, send somebody a message on Discord, that was for whatever reason just like so much slower. I guess they were like, I guess they had the Wi-Fi available more as like an alternative to like the TV or to the movies.
Yeah.
So like if you don't like something, then you can just like turn on Netflix. But yeah, if you're trying to use it for anything else, then it was like incredibly slow.
Yeah. Still, it's such a fun little thing, and it's neat to see that you're able to keep it up for so long, because I know it's something that a lot of folks may do for a couple weeks, couple months, and then just inevitably habits eventually break, but that you've really been able to make it something that is just part of your schedule, part of your habits, and, part of your brand.
Yeah, I think the only thing though is that it has absolutely decimated my media tab on Twitter.
Oh, that's true.
Like,
I hadn't even thought of that.
I can never be an artist because, like, if you go, I like, sometimes I wonder, like, for new people who scroll through my Twitter, like, if you're trying to find a specific post, you're like, oh, there was a picture associated with it, and just pulling up my media tab, and it's just all Slep a Whack. Like, it's just all Slepawack and then the occasional picture from a going live post. It's just 100% that.
Also, are the media tabs now gone on Twitter? I was
Are
going
they?
to just double check it there. I'm only seeing posts and replies.
Oh,
I know
maybe
that
they are
like
gone.
you'll have media on your own page that you can always you have that tab for yourself, but are media tabs not public anymore?
Uh, I mean, they should still be because the posts, if as long as the posts there are still public. Maybe they took them away on desktop. Oh, you know what? Check. Okay, if you're on desktop, check how zoomed in you are to Twitter because there's some
Oh,
features that just like disappear if you're
mm,
zoomed in too much.
nope, I'm
I
seeing
don't
it
know why they
normal.
do it like that, but
I don't think I removed it with uBlock because I've blocked so much of Twitter's UI with uBlock Origin hashtag not sponsored, but it's great. But I don't think I
yeah.
got rid of that. But I do see it on Blue Sky, and it is very easy to follow you. That sometimes I need to. I have this little area, this screen on the left-hand side where I always put the guest socials, and sometimes I need to put, Blue Sky is this, Twitter is this, and you are uniform across all platforms. It is just nice, Eggy.
I know, it's great. I'm so glad I've been able to get the username on every platform because that doesn't always happen. I think there's only been one time I haven't been able to get nice Eggy, and I think that was Roblox. Roblox, for whatever reason, would not let me.
It
I
would
don't know
be.
why. Okay, it wasn't even that somebody else had the name, if I remember correctly. It's that it was just like a name that they wouldn't allow, which was incredibly strange. Like, I don't know if there's like some
Does
like
egg
swear
hit
word.
Does egg
I
hit their
don't
filter
know.
somehow? I can't imagine.
That seems weird because I feel like there's a lot of other words that contain the word egg that you think
Mm-mm.
would probably like get past like it wouldn't be like the issue like if you call yourself assassin and then the site's like actually
It
that
has
has the word ass in it. Yeah, like I don't know. It was the weirdest thing.
Huh.
But yeah, no, Twitter I got nice Eggy, Blue Sky got nice Eggy, TikTok I got nice Eggy, Twitch I got nice Eggy, even my email address is like niceeggy@gmail.com. Like I've gotten Eggy, I've gotten the name, I have it down, I have the monopoly.
I know for me, when I first thought of VTuber Talk, I was thinking of, okay, I want to do a talk show, and VTuber Talk seemed like really low-hanging fruit, frankly. So I did a quick check and was like, these handles can't be available, can they? And they were. So I hadn't fully committed to the idea of the show yet. It was like, okay, someone's going to think of this. I'm not that creative. So I registered the handles on Twitch and Twitter that day and said to myself, okay, in a week, if I decide I don't want to do this after all, I'll just delete the accounts. The handles will go back into the wild, no harm done. But, I had in the back of my mind that it's such an easy branding. Someone's going to think of this, and if I don't do this now, like, is someone going to register this tomorrow?
I mean, I guess it's... Yeah, you're right. It does seem like a pretty basic name, right? Like, it does seem like something...
I'm going to do a talk show with VTubers. But
VTuber...
fortunately,
Talk,
Nice Eggy
yeah.
it is two relatively normal words. That Eggy, in particular, is a bit more niche. That Nice Egg is probably more competitive in terms of handles. But Nice Eggy, I feel like it hits that sweet spot of, one, it's very short, it's only a couple syllables, very easy to say, very easy to remember, but I feel like the Y at the end makes it just off-kilter enough that it's not going to be something that people are going to be scrambling over. No pun intended.
Yeah, I guess. I wonder what would happen if there's like an alternate dimension where I picked good Eggy. I'm not sure what the like stats are like for good Eggy. Like, because I know like being a good egg is like a phrase that exists. So I'm like, I wonder if good Eggy would be more in demand than nice Eggy would have been.
Doing a quick check on Twitter, I see that Good Eggy was taken in July 2014. The person has 5 followers, is following 5 people, has 1 follower, and 0 posts.
So I guess I guess it's good that I was nice. It's
Yes.
good that I was nice and not good.
mm, Now, you mentioned that you like to play a lot of different comfy games. One of the games that you play a fair bit of, and depending on who you ask, may or may not be terribly comfy, is mahjong.
Yes.
But what's the phrase? I think it's from KG Ultimate Gambler of
Yeah.
mahjong does like nothing but damage the soul or something to that
Great
effect.
damage. It was great damage to the human spirit without a single benefit, I believe. I believe that's what it was.
So what are your origins with mahjong?
So my origins with mahjong are I was in a Discord call once with a bunch of friends, and they were playing Mahjong Soul, and they're like, "Hey, you should play with us." And I was like, "I have no idea how to do this." But I went in, I made an account, I did the tutorial. I messed up on understanding the game. My first time I played Mahjong, gladly it was like a friendly match, so this had no effect on my ranking. But when they explained it to me, I understood it. Like the tutorial was like, okay, here's how you make all simples. You have to get these tiles and you have to avoid these tiles. But the thing is that like they didn't tell me where those tiles had to be. So the first time I played it, I accidentally like discarded every single tile that I actually needed because I thought that my
Oh,
discard
you thought that was the
pile-
play area of.
I thought that's where it needed to go.
It makes
So
sense.
I was
That's what
like,
you do
okay.
in most card games. You
Yeah.
play them out on the field. I summon Dark Magician. You play your Pokemon out on the field. Everything it goes out into the visible area that you show what you're building. And if you're not used to that type of game, you don't realize, oh wait, it needs to stay in my hand.
Yeah. So I put them all out, and then I was like, excuse me, why is the game not
Why have I
prompting
not
me?
won?
Yeah, so I think that was my first time playing. I played quite a bit before I started streaming it. Like I played it a lot in like summer of 2022 before I left for Japan. Then I went to Japan. I played a lot of Mahjong Soul while I was in Japan. And then when I came back, I was like, I could probably stream this. And then I started streaming it, and that's about the whole history. I wouldn't consider myself like a great mahjong player. I promise I'm better when I'm not on stream because I don't have
As
like the
most people
yapping
are in
debuff.
most games, to be
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah, I don't have like the yapping debuff, but yeah, that's the whole history. I can't say it's a terribly deep history.
Sometimes the stories are indeed simple. That's a fun one. I actually played American-style mahjong growing up with my grandmother a fair bit, and I always knew that there was a more traditional mahjong out there. Didn't end up learning it until more recently, mostly because of Mahjong Soul and other folks in VTubing. Took me a while to finally get all of the Han and figure out, okay, if I open, I need to not do all simples or make sure that I actually had what is required to have a proper hand. But yeah, it's been neat to sort of see that become a thing in VTubing.
Yeah. Wait, isn't American Mahjong the one where like the Yakus change every year and you have to buy like the Mahjong season pass? Like
Yeah, it's a little card that they have different hands for the year, and that there will be a couple that will actually be related to the year. So in this case, it would be 2025, so it would probably be 2, and then the White Dragon would count as the 0, and then 2 and 5 of the same suit. That wouldn't be for all hands, but for a couple of them. And then I never played consistently enough to know how they really figured out the rest of the hands. But you are correct that there was a little bit of variation each and every year as opposed to the evergreen hands.
Because yeah, I'm like, I feel like I would get tripped up. Every January I would get tripped up by having to like get accustomed to the new Yaku.
Yeah. Every time I played with my grandmother, I literally just had the little card in front of me and would be glancing and trying to be really subtle and not make it too obvious about which sector of the card I was glancing at. It's a lot of fun. It's cool that it's become something of your content as well. And another card game that is not quite a conventional card game that I and many others have fallen down its own rabbit hole of is Balatro.
Dun, 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 dun,
Oh, the
dun,
Game Awards
dun,
arrangement was
dun,
really
dun, dun,
good.
dun, dun, dun. Yeah. Well, it's like it's a good music. It's a good music. It's like usually with these kinds of games, I will turn off the music. Like I don't keep the music on for Mahjong Soul. I will usually just like put on something else in the background. For a lot of these like kind of idle games, I don't keep the music on. Balatro is the exception. I never play it with the music muted. Always music on.
The only reason I don't play with the music on is because I'm usually listening to a stream or something in the background. If I'm not watching something, though, I'm going to turn the music back on.
Well, it's almost like I feel like if I don't have the music on, it feels like I'm not getting the full experience, you know?
That's how you know
Like,
you've got
it's
a
like
really,
very much...
really good soundtrack.
Yeah, it's like it's music that like really pulls you in. Like I feel like if I don't hear the music, it's like are you really
Are you
playing
really
Balatro?
in the zone? Are you
Yeah,
Is there some just subconscious suboptimality of not having the Balatro music while you play?
Yeah, it's like well, it's like I don't know what to compare it to. But it feels like if you were like playing Balatro without the music feels like if you're playing like a VR game but on like a computer monitor, right? Where it's like, okay, this is like you're like 80% of the way there, but it's not the full experience. It's not like the full intended experience, I think.
Yeah, or playing Pokemon without the music. Of just, okay, yeah, you're playing, but you're not getting that experience. And
Yeah.
You're not getting the full point.
Yeah, exactly. But
I wound
yeah. I
I
don't know.
wound up picking
Balatro
up
is some...
Balatro. Sorry.
No. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I picked it up pretty late. It was only after it got nominated for the Game Awards. I was like, okay, whoa, it's actually nominated for Game of the Year. I should probably pick this thing up. When did you end up getting in on that? Because I know some folks were in really early.
I went... Okay, I downloaded it on a whim because a friend had asked like if I wanted to join their Steam like family group, and I was like, sure. And they had Balatro in their library, so I'm like, okay, a lot of people are talking about this. I might as well give it a try because like, you know, it can run on like 2 sticks and a rock. Like it's not like a high spec game. So I like started it. I didn't get pulled in instantly. I had like... Because, like, again, I'm not a card games person. I find I get, like, pretty overwhelmed by card games. But, like, I think once I got the hang of using, like... Well, I don't remember what combination of jokers it was. But I think the first time you get, like, a genuinely good combination that actually gives you numbers, you're like, oh, that's what the game is about.
Yeah, that dopamine
And
of when you
I
get
think from there...
an engine going.
Yeah. I think it also helped that it was a good commute game. So I played it a lot on the bus. I would just like, I didn't have it on my phone, but I would bring my laptop on the bus and just play Balatro on the bus. And the fact that I got it from, because I know some people have said that like, they would be in a Steam family with their friends, but then all their friends are all playing Balatro. But with Steam family, I think you only have one person playing a game at a time.
Oh.
So they would all be fighting over it. But luckily, the person who I share the library with does not play. They do not play it much. So the Balatro is all mine. It's always my turn on the Balatro.
I forget who it was that gave me the sort of descriptive analogy of the type of addiction that Balatro is. You're not going through your day thinking about Balatro, thinking about, oh man, what if I got this build or something, or man, I want to get back and play Balatro, but it is so easy to just sit down and say, yeah, I'm going to boot up Balatro right now. And then, oops, there goes 3 hours.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not entirely clear for me, like, how long it actually takes to, like, beat, like, you know, like, get through, like, get to, like, you know, finish up Ante-8 or whatever. Like, I'm not actually sure how long it takes. But it's probably longer than it feels like.
Yeah.
I think the thing with it, too, as well, is that, like, it's very much, I think it's a bit like Mahjong in the way that, like, it's a game of strategy, but, like, you can't, it's more of a game about working with what you get, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can't go in being like, okay, this is the strategy I'm going to employ, right? Because you don't know what you're going to get. Like, it's kind of just like taking opportunities of like, oh, I got a chance to buy this card. I have a chance to like play this hand. Like it's really just like taking opportunities rather than like a straightforward. It's not like, I don't know, like chess strategy where it's like the chessboard is always going to look the same at the beginning, right?
Yeah, that part of it is knowing the environment of you don't necessarily need to remember offhand, okay, this is every single joker that I could possibly get, and this is the odds of a particular Arcana card, but knowing the generalities of, all right, from here, I should probably look for something that scales, or, all right, it would make the next hands a lot easier if I prioritize something, with malt or chips or something, and just from there, knowing even the basics of the environment, you're able to adjust your strategy a bit more. And that I really like the comparison with mahjong of just working with what you have. That there's a format of Magic the Gathering I really enjoy called Draft, which similarly you go in not knowing what you're going to get, that you don't have a pre-built deck. And I really have always enjoyed that type of game. So I think that's why I wind up enjoying Balatro as well, of just the continuous puzzle of it all.
Yeah. Somebody in chat says it sounds like Eggy wants to play a Mahjong Balatro game. I know one
There has to be a
exists, because I
mod.
think it's not a mod. Somebody made like basically an entire new game that basically is more or less just Balatro with Mahjong tiles. I don't remember what it's called. I think I saw it on Steam once and I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then I didn't put it on my wish list and then I forgot the title. Oh, I'm sure I'll run into it again because I play enough Mahjong and enough Balatro that I think Steam is like, maybe you should be interested in that. Ao Tenjo. Oh, maybe that was it. That might have been it. Ao Tenjo. Yeah.
Is that a play on words for something for Mahjong?
Ao Tenjo. Ao is blue. Tenjo. Oh, Ultima Mahjong and Ao Tenjo. Okay, so they're two separate games. It's just that two people independently had the brilliant idea. Okay.
Yeah. I look forward to seeing the sort of subgenre of Balatro likes that this will inspire.
Yeah. Balatro likes.
I mean, it's technically a roguelike because it's something iterative in that you gain certain bits, but essentially you're starting a new run. But obviously it's very different from most roguelikes, and genres beget more genres. So here and now I'm coining it. I'm sure someone else has been smart enough to do it already, but Balatro likes, yes.
I remember thinking recently too, I'm like, would somebody ever come up with like is somebody ever going to sell like an IRL Balatro deck? And I'm like, wait, hold on, is that possible? Because I feel like Balatro kind of like relies on having infinite cards. Like, and the fact that like destroying cards is like part of like that's a regular part of the gameplay. I'm like, maybe a real life Balatro set might not be possible, or like a deck would be super thick.
Yeah, from a design standpoint, there's ways that you can do it, but you're also right that there's a limit to the madness, that you couldn't have a 1,000-card deck, but that you could have your Joker deck and your Arcana deck and different things of, all right, you, between hands, deal out 2 cards from the Joker deck and 2 cards from the booster pack deck, and, if you choose to buy the Arcana thing, you flip up 5 cards from the Arcana deck. I think it would just be unfathomably bulky to do in physical cards, and that you would also then run into the point you had of you can't actually continuously put an unlimited amount of cards in your deck. Plus, the manual calculation would just be a nightmare. That half the fun is, okay, I put these things out.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what the number is going to be, but I'm hoping it's going to be enough, and then seeing numbers go burr is not going to be nearly as fun as having to do manual accounting.
Yeah, because I was trying to think of a way of like making it automatic, and I'm like, maybe there's some kind of thing if you had like but then it would get really fancy and really expensive.
Yeah, I guess
I'm
you
like,
could do
what if you had,
RFIDs or something, maybe?
Yeah, and then have like a thing where it just like detects what jokers you have up there.
Yeah.
And but then obviously as the game goes on, if you get more jokers and there are spots, then I guess that will also. Yeah. And then you also have stuff like it needs to be able to know which jokers are next to what other jokers.
Yeah,
so that
matters.
Stuff like Blueprint will work. Yeah, I feel like that gets very complicated very quickly.
I like Melkor's idea, the Balatro dual disc.
I place a stone card and end my turn. I don't actually know anything about Yu-Gi-Oh, and I don't intend to learn.
Yu-Gi-Oh is a game of all time. I was really into it for the first 2 generations of the anime and sort of fell off after that. And I look over every so often and say, wow, that game got power crept real bad. Glad people enjoy it. I'm not going to yuck somebody's yum, but oh boy, it's very different.
No, I mean, most of the people I've talked to who play Yu-Gi-Oh have said in no uncertain terms, like, do not start playing Yu-Gi-Oh. Most of the people who play Yu-Gi-Oh are people who have been playing Yu-Gi-Oh for years and have just, like, accepted the way things are. Which is fair, because every time I've watched somebody play Yu-Gi-Oh, I do not understand what's going on. So it feels like maybe something... Plus, like, card games feel like a very expensive hobby to pick up. Like, I've had friends, like, I once knew a guy who, like, was really into card games, and he had, like, an entire coffee table. Like, he played multiple games. Like, he did Yu-Gi-Oh, he did Magic, he did, like, a few other ones. He was always down to try new ones. But, yes, this resulted in having an entire coffee table in his house of just nothing but card game cards. Like, just boxes and boxes and boxes of, like, card game and card game paraphernalia, like, you know, like card sleeves and stuff. And it's like, yeah, that seems like a very expensive hobby, because you got to keep it updated too, right? Because they release new cards, and like sometimes old cards like go out of circulation, or they get banned, or they get unbanned. So it's like, it feels like something you constantly have to be collecting just a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I know a couple folks like that, and it can be a lot. And some of them play competitively, so they'll actually be buying in. And in some ways, it's actually an investment for them, because if you're really good at TCGs and the overall strategy, those skills can transfer pretty easily from one game to the next. And that, you know, I've known folks that will go to their locals or go to regional tournaments and maybe aren't getting first place every time, but you know, top 32 performance is going to get you 3 boxes of something, and then winning your locals once every 2-3 weeks is going to get you another box there, and then you sell that and it helps fund things, and you can even turn a profit. For me, I mentioned drafting. Terribly long story short on that is you sit at a table and you get 3 packs and pass cards, and you build your deck from that. And that what I would do is, you know, a draft would be about $15, and that you would also get usually a pack per win for 3 matches or something. And at the end of the draft, I would just sell the rares back, and sometimes I wouldn't get anything rare. Sometimes I'd get a really good card. Sometimes I'd be up a couple bucks. Sometimes I'd be down. But it would shake out to be, okay, I'm running about even, or at absolute worst, let's say I just wash out. It's the price of a movie ticket.
Yeah. It's not like you're not losing, like, this isn't gambling. Like, this isn't like, let's go gambling. It's like, let's go purchase a beer or something.
Yeah,
like,
you know, I'm paying for an afternoon of entertainment, and then I'm getting rid of the cards. Occasionally, I would keep 1 or 2 if I think, okay, this is a very valuable card right now, and I think the price is going to go up. You know, very low-grade stock holding for what that's worth. But the most I ever had was a very small box of cards that either I really personally liked or thought I would sell, and you know, it doesn't even qualify as a collection. It's not decks or anything, and that's how I engage with card games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess it's just, I don't know. I have other expensive hobbies. I'm willing to, like, devote my money to. I don't think I need card games.
What are those expensive hobbies, though?
Well, I mean, okay, I don't buy as much clothing as I used to. Lolita dresses aren't cheap, okay?
Oh, I have some friends that are in that, and I have heard they're very fancy.
They're very fancy. Behold, here is the one I have for VTubing. Usually most dresses, okay, so the secret is that most people are buying stuff secondhand, because most Lolita dresses are sold, they're sold as like a limited time thing, right? So it's like there will be a pre-order, or there will be like a short order period for a specific dress, and then after that it's closed. So if you want the dress after, you either have to buy it secondhand from somebody who bought it when it was open, or you have to, you know, hope that the thing was popular enough to get a re-release later, right? So and then on top of that, like, your average, I feel like your average Lolita dress will probably run you, like, probably $250 at the cheapest from like a major brand, from like a well-known brand. It would probably be like $250 at the cheapest. Some of them can be like over $800, but usually like between 250 and 500 is usually the pretty standard range. So yeah, it's not cheap, but like it's one of those things where like,
I mean,
if you
that's reasonable. That's
plan
about what you're
stuff,
going to pay
yeah.
for a good, proper dress or a
hmm
suit or a tuxedo for really
Yeah.
any genre of style. That if I want to go to a Men's Warehouse right now and buy myself a new suit, I'm paying about that much.
Yeah. So it's not. I think a lot of people get like not filtered, but they get like a little thrown off because especially if you're the kind of person who's like accustomed to like if you're not accustomed to pay a lot for clothes. Like I feel like the people that I've met who have been like most open to buying fancy frilly dresses have been people who were like already sort of aware of like either they were into like streetwear or something else before where they're kind of accustomed to just like paying a certain amount for clothes. Uh, but yeah, I the thing is that with Lolitas you can't really go cheaper because there is a pretty big like there needs to be a certain baseline level of like material quality and like quality of stuff like lace and buttons and stuff that is kind of inherent in the base idea of the fashion. So like there is a limit to how cheap you can go with it and still maintain the aesthetic. There definitely have been in recent years like cheaper options, like either companies that make stuff with like kind of stock fabric, or like just like either cheaper materials or like they simplify the design. So there has been like, especially coming out of like China, and I think there's a few brands from Europe that make things that are a little bit cheaper than what you would pay for like the average thing from Japan. But yeah, it is still it is an expensive fashion, but you can't really unexpensive it without taking away something of value, you know?
Yeah, and you're getting what you pay for. That
Oh yeah,
there
definitely.
there are clothing brands that are very simple white T-shirts, and by putting the particular logo on it, it's suddenly a $300 shirt or pair of pants or something, and that's
hmm
casual wear. What you're getting with a Lolita dress or something that's streetwear, that it's going to be something very striking and unique, and eh, sometimes it's probably something that you can even wear to a formal occasion. That I would guess that some of the more I don't want to say more extreme designs, I guess more ostentatious designs perhaps might not be something you could necessarily wear to something like a wedding or a formal occasion, but I have to guess that there's at least a couple designs that you might be able to actually use in a more conventional sense.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's all about how you style it, right? Because even something that's a little less, like something that's not dressed down, but like a little, like if you have a piece that's like a little simpler, a little less over the top, you can style it over the top by like changing, what blouse you wear it with, what accessories you use, what shoes you wear. But you can also dress it down. Like I have a few dresses and a few skirts that I just straight up have worn to work before, because again, if you style it right, then people might look at it and think like, "Oh, this is something kind of vintage or something like vaguely goth." But like again, if you style it right, it's not going to look out of place in an office, or at least like not super out of place, you know?
Yeah. And you bring up a good point of you don't necessarily need to have the full ensemble, that these can work as individual pieces that can be swapped in and out with
hmm
other outfits.
Yeah, I think something that, because I know a lot of people when they get into the fashion, they hear about like the rules TM of the fashion, like things like, wear a petticoat, like wear a blouse, skirts have to be like a certain length. And I think a lot of people get a little too hung up on like the rules TM, because I think the thing with the rules is that it's not about saying, oh, this is Lolita, this if you're wearing Lolita, you can do this, but not this. It's more to be like, if the outfit has these components to it, then it is Lolita, right? So like if it has like that petticoat shape, if it's like a certain length, if the shoulders are covered, if the dress is a certain shape, then yeah, this hits all the check marks for
Yeah,
what
for
would count as
technical
Lolita.
classification. And I have to imagine some of this is also just, all right, here's conventional rules of what's probably going to look good.
Yeah, definitely some of it is just like normal fashion rules. Like, coordinate your colors properly is not like something exclusive to Lolita. But I think the other thing too is I think a lot of people get hung up on them. But really what I find is that they're more there for people who are just starting, for people who are like not 100% really like confident in defining like what is and isn't Lolita. Because once I feel like there's like a certain like curve, like it's very much like a chart of like person who's been in Lolita for like just starting. They're like, okay, I gotta follow all the rules. I have to follow all the rules, otherwise I'm doing it wrong. And it feels like that gets more and more intense. And then at some point you like hit a certain level and then it just like slides downhill, right? At some point you're like, okay, I can bend this rule. I can bend that rule. I can try doing this instead or that instead. And I think that kind of like, because you look at like new Lolitas and you'll see them doing things wrong. And then you'll look at like people who are super experienced and they will be kind of bending the rules as well, but they'll be bending it, I guess, in a more skilled way, like in a way that's like, okay, this is intentional. This isn't like, oh, I couldn't be bothered to buy the right kind of socks. This is like, no, I intentionally did it this way, right?
Yeah,
So,
fashion, like many
yeah.
things, is an art, and that in art, pushing boundaries and trying new things is how the medium evolves.
Yeah, exactly. And I think also too, like within, and I see this like I guess more with broader like J fashion community abroad, is that like within, I think there's been kind of like the Lolitification of other fashion styles, if that makes sense, because Lolita has kind of rules to it, right? But sometimes I see people who seem to take that idea of like, okay, this fashion has rules, and they try to apply it to like other fashions, right? So you see people saying like, here's the rules of GRIK, and it's like, well, it's not really the same. Like it has like a specific aesthetic to it, right? Like there are things you can look at and be like, yeah, here's some common points. Like if you show somebody a bunch of GRIK outfits, they'll be like, oh yeah, these are the colors they tend to use. This is like the typical length of skirts or like the kind of shoes they wear with it. But that's not like, there's not like rules, which I think is, I don't know, it's not a new phenomenon. I think people like to blame Zoomers for this, but it's not a new phenomenon. Like I was seeing people like 10 years ago in Lolita Facebook groups like showing a picture of like stuff from H&M and being like, does this count as Fairy K? Does this count as Decora? Like this is not a new phenomenon.
Also, Vespera, thank you so much for the raid. Welcome on
Welcome.
in, Raiders. Happy to have you here. I'm Jay. This is Vtuber Talk, and I am talking with Eggy, and we're actually talking about Lolita. Vespera actually said that they had no idea Lolita had rules, and we've sort of been talking around the rules about the rules, but what exactly are the sort of baseline rules of Lolita fashion?
Okay, so typically there's like a few that are, again, some people have like their own idea and they've definitely changed over the years, but typically it's, there has to be a petticoat of some kind. Usually it's either like a bell-shaped petticoat or an A-line. So a bell-shaped petticoat is something more like, kind of more of a cupcake shape, whereas A-line is exactly what it sounds like. It's like a very like kind of angled kind of skirt shape. So that's the first one. The second thing is that like usually the dresses are knee length or like somewhere between like knee length and mid calf length. Any longer it becomes a little like, it doesn't have that shape anymore. And then like any shorter it just becomes like a maid outfit, I guess. Again, if you're super tall or if you're super short, that rule kind of can get bent because, the dress is the length that it is. So like, yeah. If you're tall, then like it is what it is, right? Usually shoulders are covered. So like if you are wearing a sleeveless dress, usually you're gonna wear it with a blouse. If your dress has sleeves, then I guess that's not a problem. Sometimes I've seen in the summer people have figured out like they'll wear like a sleeveless dress, but then they'll wear like some kind of like light cardigan or like capelet kind of thing on top. That's also an option. But usually, yeah, the shoulders are covered. Pretty much people are like, they call it like modesty, but I think modesty kind of gives people the wrong idea of what the point is. The point is pretty much just like, I don't know, just don't show your boobs, I guess, is pretty much the limit of it. And then I would say usually a headpiece is of some kind is necessary. I think this is one point that a lot of people have to get used to when they start. Because personally, I'm a big hats enjoyer. I wear a lot of hats. So to be like, oh, this, you should wear a hat or a headband or like a large bow, like that wasn't like something new to me. That's kind of what I was doing already, right? But yeah, usually you gotta have some kind of headpiece just because the skirt is often so big that if you see somebody with like a really big dress, but they don't have like anything on their head, like they're just wearing their hair down, it throws everything off balance, right? Like it's a very bottom heavy outfit. So
Never even
if you
thought
have
about
like,
that, but
yeah. So if you have
imagining
like a
it,
big bow,
yeah.
a hat, yeah, balances out.
Are there any tangential, I suppose, fashion styles that if somebody is either missing a factor or changes a factor, that it somehow accidentally becomes another classification of, oh, that's no longer Lolita, but you're actually now in the realm of blank?
I think there is, again, there's been a few styles that have come and gone over the years that have kind of like overlapped. I think Himegyaru is probably one example. Himegyaru is like what people who don't know what Lolita is think it looks like. It's like, it's pretty much kind of like if you combined kind of the frilly, princessy kind of quality of Lolita with Yaru like hair and makeup. So usually the dresses are a bit shorter. Things are a little like less over the top. Again, it's like it's Gyaru, but like, you know, pink and frilly, right?
Yeah, because Hime
so
being
obviously
the
it's,
actual word
yeah,
for princess, I believe is the
princess, yeah,
direct translation. So it's a princess gal in the
yeah,
direct translation there, and I can imagine how those two would combine. Yeah.
yeah. I think another one. I'm trying to think of other ones. In the past, there was something called otome style, which is such a loosely defined thing that I'm not even 100% confident in what it is. Because I've seen like multiple different things where people are like, this is what otome looks like. And I think what the word has meant something very different at different points in time. So like otome is either going to be very like long frilly dresses, like lots of layers, kind of almost like Mori girl adjacent, but like frillier rather than earthier. Or it's like a more simple, like vintage inspired one. Again, they're kind of Lolita adjacent, and there's a lot of brands that do stuff that kind of works for both. But yeah, it's one of those ones where I'm like, I'm not even sure if that's the word they use for it in Japan. Because that's the other thing too. Is sometimes when things head overseas,
Literally lost in
they
translation.
well, it's a bit like how you know how they have this for anime terms, where like when we say hentai in English, we're referring to like any kind of lewd, like, you know,
Adult
any kind of like
animation
lewd
originating from
anime.
Japan,
Yeah, like, but it
whereas
can be anime, it can be manga, it can be games. Like, we in English, it all falls under hentai, but like that's not what they call it in Japanese. And in Japanese, they have like a separate word for each thing, right? You have like eroge, manga, etc., right?
mm,
So I feel like with J fashion, that also happens quite a bit too, where either there will be a word, like for instance, there was a style back, oh god, that was like 10 years ago, I think. There was a style called Larm K. So Larm was a magazine in Japan, like a fashion magazine, and I guess it had like a distinct enough aesthetic that when people would wear stuff inspired by this magazine, and you know, a fashion reporter would ask them about it, they would say, "Oh, this is like Larm K, like this is kind of like Larm style," and it was kind of understood that yeah, Larm is the magazine, right? Like this is inspired. It's like if you said like, "Oh, this is inspired by like." Trying to think of an example in English. But like if you had
Vogue or
like a
something, I
specific,
guce. I don't know fashion magazines.
yeah, like or like if you had like a celebrity here where like if you said like try to think of like a celebrity with like notable fashion style. If you tried to dress like Lil Nas X and somebody asked you, "Oh, that's an interesting outfit you have there. Where did you get the idea?" And you're like, "Oh yeah, I saw Lil Nas X how he dresses." Like it'd be like if somebody took that and then like turned it into like Lil Nas X style and like you like it's not
I'm
like a whole
surprised there isn't Lady
subculture, right?
Gaga style now that you mention it.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where I think that kind of nuance of like this isn't like a sub style with its own rules and its own aesthetic. This is just stuff that's based on a thing in a magazine that is popular.
Yeah,
I
almost
think
an
that kind of got
homage
lost in
or just sort of, inspiration.
Yeah, but that kind of got lost in translation. So you had people in, I remember seeing people on the English side treating LARM as if it was like its own, like, as if it was like Lolita, right? Or Decora, or where there was like a distinct aesthetic to it, where it's like, no, it's kind of just like whatever shows up in the magazine. And I think the magazine is still around, but obviously like LARM, it's also interesting because LARM K kind of looks like what Jirai. I feel like LARM kind of eventually like shifted into Jirai, because if you look at like LARM style, like what was appearing there in like 2015 2016, and then it feels like it's like burgeoning Jirai, like it's kind of like bubbling under there. It just hasn't blossomed into its full form yet, I guess.
I'll admit I just had to look up what Jirai is.
Yeah you probably have seen it before, you just didn't realize it was a word for it.
Yeah, at a glance, not necessarily knowing it, it looks like it could end up being confused for Gothic Lolita, but sort of without the coat. I'm not sure what a more proper classification for it would be.
Well, Jirai...
How would you describe Jirai?
Well, Jirai, okay, so I think the thing with Jirai as well is that there's also a certain level, and I wouldn't call myself a Jirai expert, like there are people who are probably more well-versed in it than I am. The origins of Jirai are very, very different from the origins of Lolita fashion. So Jirai is something that was kind of, again, it's a fairly recent style, but I would almost say in a way, it's almost like Yaru for the Zoomer generation. And a lot of people might be confused at the comparison, but so Jirai is like, it's a very like feminine, it's like kind of feminine in a mature way, right? Like it's very girly, Sanrio pop characters are still present, there's a lot of pink, but there's also a lot of black. The silhouettes are often a little more like, I don't think demure is quite the word for it, but like it's very girly, but in a bit more of a mature way, right? There's not a lot of like pastels or like giant skirts or anything, right? But Jirai is also in Japan kind of associated with, I guess, delinquency. A lot of Jirai girls are known to be like, like big partiers, big drinkers, kind of menhera, sad girls, monster energy drinkers, like that kind of thing, right? So, but in a way, I do think it is kind of similar to the way Yaru was perceived in the past, because they are kind of like, when you think about like reputation-wise, what do these styles have in common? It's like, okay, well, they're both known to be big partiers. They're both styles that are very popular with like teenagers and young adults. They're both, kind of associated with like, delinquency and rule breaking and rebellion. The main difference I think is just that Yaru were kind of perceived to be like, super upbeat, happy girls, and then like Jirai is like the complete opposite of that, of like, insane sad girls. So I think it is kind of just feels like Yaru for a new generation. The girl from Needy Streamer Overdose is Jirai K, right? Yes. Ame, yes. In Needy Streamer Overdose, I'd say a good example of not just the style, but I think like the general perception of what somebody who wears Jirai is like would be, Ame from Needy Streamer Overdose. Like specifically in that like black and red outfit, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
That one is very specifically Jirai, or at least based on it.
You mentioned earlier Otome as sort of a pseudo style or pseudo genre, and I say this as somebody who does not know that scene at all and does not play Otome games, but the first place my mind goes to with that term is Otome games, and that, at least from what I have seen, I can see how that would end up being a potentially parallel or tangential genre to Lolita, because I guess I'm probably wrong here, but my general perception of Otome is that it ends up being in that thriller era more Victorian, for lack of a better term, I suppose, is what I mentally associate with it, because it usually ends up being in that, high society, usually pseudo-Victorian era, and my guess is that's where those comparisons or similarities end up being drawn, but I'm probably missing a lot of context as well.
I think the first piece of context that you're missing is that Otome fashion and Otome games have absolutely no relation. the word otome just means maiden in Japanese. So what maiden really consists of obviously is going to change over time, right? So if you Google otome fashion, let me just send you like the first picture that comes up. And this is the one that usually, I guess, is more Lolita adjacent. I will send this to you on Discord, see if you can put it on screen. This is one that's a bit more Lolita adjacent. Like you see, like they have like the printed dresses. This, you know, the style is a lot more straight and vintage inspired. Like you don't get a lot of poofy dresses. You don't get a lot of like super frilly. You can see the colors. The way the colors are used is a little like blockier. Like very much Lolita stuff is very like matchy. Like you get a lot of people like stressing about like whether their pinks match. Like I wore pink shoes with this pink dress, but they're two slightly different shades of pink. It seems otome is a little more chill. Like you see in the picture, which I don't know if it's on screen yet. Like those red tights, those like the bold red tights in that picture on the left, you would not really see that in Lolita fashion. That's just not a way somebody would coordinate it. If this was Lolita, they probably would be wearing probably doing white socks. They'd probably keep the red shoes, but they'd probably be doing like, you know, white socks to match the white blouse, and then maybe their hat could be red, but that wouldn't be a move you would really see in Lolita, right? So that's the first kind of otome, and I believe this is kind of, I don't know when these pictures are from, but this definitely looks like late 2000s, early 2010s. Now, the second definition of otome that I've seen, and this one is one of those ones that's like much older, but kind of has come back. Let me see if I can find like a good picture example. Okay, this is like a drawing diagram that I think somebody had made. So this was, I believe, this was kind of like, you see this in like the 70s and, well, it says the 70s, but I feel like it's more of an 80s thing. But this kind of like long dress, big collar, lots of layers, you know, maybe a sweater or jacket. I feel like this is what was considered otome like a long time ago. And this has definitely come back. I've definitely been seeing, even Lolita brands seem to be kind of like cribbing from this specific kind of silhouette. Like in recent years, we've seen a lot more like longer dresses, a lot more like dresses that can be worn in layers, like, you know, ones with like buttons along the front, so you can wear like another skirt underneath it or something else underneath it, right? There is one brand I feel like has been like, it's weird because like I feel like this has been pretty influential recently, but nobody outside of Japan seems to know. Well, it's not like nobody is talking about this. People are definitely talking about this. People in Japan definitely know what it is. People outside of Japan, for some reason, don't. Here's an example of their clothes. There's a brand called Pink House. So this is an example of Pink House dresses. Pink House is incredibly expensive. More so than Lolita dresses, but it's one of those ones where if you see the dress in person, you're like, okay, I 100% understand why it is the price that it is, because, you know, they're long dresses, lots of ruffles, lots of details. Sometimes they will have like little crocheted pieces. They will have like lots of like custom lace or like custom stuff that almost has to be done by hand. It's like very detailed. It's 100% one of those ones you're like, okay, I understand why this thing is like over $800, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, this is one that I feel like has been, like even within Japan, I think I had bought a Pink House t-shirt once, and when I was studying there, like a girl in my choir recognized it. She's like, oh yeah, you like Pink House. So, but like abroad, I feel like it's not super well known, and I feel like whenever I talk about it, I have to preface, like, have you ever heard of a brand called Pink House? And the other person will be like, no. So, yeah, it's one of those things I'm like, what happens in Japan does not always necessarily carry over super well to abroad. And there's also certain things that I think, like when you look at Lolita dresses that are designed in Japan versus ones that are designed in China versus ones designed in Europe or in the States, like they're never quite the same, right? Because even if they're working with the same kind of base style, they're all working with different influences, right? So it's like somebody who's in America, they might have grown up with Japanese things. Like they might have grown up with anime, they might have grown up with like, magical girls and Sanrio and a lot of the same things that like a designer in Japan might have grown up with, but the way they experience them is different, and that's going to be reflected in the way that, they design their clothes, what kind of colors they use, what kind of things they associate with other things. Um, just things like that.
Hmm. For you,
Sorry, that one
no,
that was
it's
like
a talk
the
show,
least.
Eggy. I got you to talk.
Yeah,
That means I did it right. That means you did it right. This is good.
This is yapping. This is yapping.
Yes. And that, for me, I love getting an education on this type of thing because I don't know this stuff. I love learning about these things, and especially when it's somebody who is so passionate and so eager that that's what this is all about. So do not apologize.
Yeah, I mean, I like teaching people about stuff. I used to do panels at conventions about like Lolita fashion, just because like I feel like it's one of those things that either people rush in head first and then realize they don't know what they're doing, or it's something that people are so scared to even like touch that they're like, but I'm like, no, I want people. I think it's good for people to try out different kinds of fashion. Like, I've even like offered to friends before. I'm like, if you ever want to try it, like I have a bunch of dresses that would fit you. I will let you use it. I will let you wear my dresses if you want. Cause yeah, I think it's something that's fun, and I think it's something like, I guess it's like, I think some people lack the confidence to wear things that are, maybe more unique or over the top, but I think it's something that, once you get used to it, can honestly make you more confident rather than like more anxious about it, I guess.
Yeah. For you, whether it be any of the specific styles that we've discussed or other ones, obviously Lolita is sort of your focus, but are there any of these different genres or styles that you've been looking to get into more yourself, or ones that we haven't even mentioned yet that you're hoping to get into and that you're looking to maybe buy your first piece or really start learning more about?
If I had $1 bajillion, I would be dressed on Pink House 100% of the time. I have a few pieces from them. Um, I mean, right now I'm in the process of losing weight because a lot of this stuff is kind of Japanese size. So I have a bunch of pieces that I'm like, I can't wait to be small enough to be able to pull them out again. But currently, I can't really put them on, at least not comfortably at the moment. Uh, I don't know. I feel like I've hit the point where when I look for things to wear, I'm no longer looking in specific substyles, right? Um, like I feel like I've ascended and I'm like, okay, I will wear things that look cute together. Sometimes I'll see things on social media, I'll see specific pieces that I'm like, oh man, I wish I had something like that. I'd like to try wearing something like that. But usually it's not like a specific substyle, it's oh, there's these shoes. I swear they were like super big in Japan this past year, but I haven't been able to figure out like what they're actually called. Um, I've seen some sites calling them like what was it? Ballet sneakers. They're like kind of a cross between like a sneaker and like a Mary Jane. So they're kind of like the bottom might be more like athletic looking, but the top will be like very frilly. Some of them have little bows and ribbons, and they usually have like the kind of like, Mary Jane strap to them.
Mm,
I feel like I saw them everywhere. I've been trying to figure out a place where I can order them from because I do really want a pair. They look like they're like the perfect crossover between like, something that's like frilly and girly, but also they just look really comfortable. A lot of shoes that I look like for these kinds of styles tend to not be the comfiest, but those look very comfortable and I want to try them out.
yeah.
Um,
As you're describing it, I'm sort of imagining in my head because initially you say ballet sneakers, and I'm like, okay, having not done ballet, but from what I've seen and known about ballet shoes, they are about as far from sneakers as you can get. So the concept, though, of it being a sneaker that has more of the perhaps ballet aesthetic. Obviously, not something that someone's actually going to use or attempt to use for ballet itself, but you have running shoes as the sort of catch-all category of, all right, this is a lighter type of athletic shoe that is meant for movement, but then sort of taking that and then applying either ballet or other types of stylistic elements to the upper part while still having what is probably something akin to a running sneaker sole beneath it.
Yeah.
I can imagine how folks would be interested in that.
Yeah, it's like the base of a sneaker. Like it's like you took the sole of a sneaker and then you put like the top part of like a Mary Jane's or like some kind of like strappy shoe. Like it's that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Is Mary Jane shoes common knowledge? I would say so, I think. I would say so. Like the single strap that like goes over. I feel like I would say that.
I feel like something that folks know perhaps on sight more than by name necessarily, especially if they're not folks that watch it or that wear it. Also, Koto Bakana, thank you so much for the raid. Welcome on in.
Hello.
Fight Rebraid. Yeah. Thank you for coming on in. I'm Jade. This is Vtuber Talk, and I am talking with Eggy, and we've been talking about a lot of different fashion, and we were actually just getting into shoes, and another area that I am very, very uneducated on and trying to piece things together, but like I was saying, I can really see how there would be interest in that type of shoe for folks, whether they be into Lolita fashion or similar styles of just, all right, shoes are always something that you're going to need. It's something that's going to bring an ensemble together, and that obviously shoes are a very specific article of clothing that you really want to have as comfortable as possible, that historically the fancier they look are less comfortable. So having new designs and takes on shoes that actually sort of bridge that gap, I can see how that would be something that a lot of people would want.
But yeah, I think also too, I feel like I'm not even that old, but I feel like I'm already kind of in the stage where I'm like, I just want things to be more comfortable. Like, because I think that's one of the things that you realize at some point is that like frilly and pretty and girly and comfortable are not like mutually exclusive categories, right? So I feel like I've been getting a lot of like, not necessarily baggier things, but like, like dresses that are like long and frilly but kind of aren't like, super restrictive at the waist, or a lot of big sweaters. I've been really into like vintage sweaters lately. Like I feel like it's been I don't buy first-hand sweaters anymore, I feel. Like I almost always just go to the thrift store. Like sometimes there's something and sometimes there isn't. The last time I went to Value Village, the sweater crop was plentiful and I found like 2 different sweaters. But yeah, I feel like that's been definitely like being cozy and comfy and soft has been something that I've been trying to integrate more so than being I mean, there's still space in my wardrobe to be fancy and frilly, but I think something I've kind of taken inspiration from in the past is what they call old school Lolita. So there's definitely a specific look, and it's definitely come back into fashion in the past few years, that kind of emulates the early days of Lolita. So kind of like early 2000s-ish. I guess it's kind of like Y2K, but Lolita. In that like, because there's like definitely a very specific look that Lolita had in its early days before it was like kind of fully formed. So it's a lot of like, the silhouette is still more or less the same. Maybe a little less poofy, but like still more or less the same. There's a lot fewer prints, so it's a lot more like, solid colors, a lot more like kind of limited color selection. So like you might have an outfit that's just black and white, right? Or that's like just pink and white kind of thing. A lot of big shoes, a lot of chunky, I guess just chunkiness to it in general. It's like chunky lace, chunky shoes, big chunky sleeves. But the thing is that it looks comfortable. And I think that's kind of what drew me to it in the first place, is that it's very frilly, it's very girly, it's very princessy, but like nobody who wears it looks uncomfortable, right? Like the kind of it feels like something you could run around, not maybe not run around it because you don't want to like sweat on it too much, right? But like,
You can
something
walk
that like
around
if
in
you
and that it's not going to be miserable. And all right, if you're just
yeah, yeah.
spending a day out in town with friends, that you can be walking a fair bit and moving a normal amount. You're not exercising or
Mhm.
anything, but that you're not going to 2 hours into the day be like, oh gosh, just I feel
Yeah,
really
yeah.
stiff, or that this is chafing, whatever. That you're able to actually go through your day and uh, not necessarily be thinking about what you're wearing because it's not something that is comfortable.
Because I definitely think like like as Lolita has progressed over the years, like there have definitely been points where like the trendy look ends up being like an outfit that you put on for like a special event and you go to your tea party or whatnot, and then you go home from your tea party and then you go ugh, and then you like take off and like you take off everything because it's like there'll be like a ton of like layers and corsets and tight fitting bits and like so like just like something that's like very basic, like kind of loose puffy sleeve blouse, you know kind of dress with minimal layers, knee socks, shoes, bow or hat. Like it's not something that you feel like you have to like peel off at the end of the day. I think that kind of appealed to me.
Mhm. You mentioned earlier going to Value Village and other thrift stores, and I definitely know, especially when it comes to niche fashion, that secondhand usually ends up being what you have to end up doing, and uh, also similarly for a lot of cosplayers or just going to thrift stores, secondhand stores is something that a lot of people end up doing. Do you have any favorite places that, obviously, don't dox yourself if there's a particular store in your area that there's only one of in the world, but have you found Value Village to be a more reliable chain, or is there perhaps another chain of thrift stores that you go to a lot?
I'm not. Again, the thing with thrift stores is that there's not really a specific chain because it really depends on the area, right? Because with thrift
Hmm.
stores, they're sourcing their clothes from stuff nearby, right?
Yeah.
So like I remember like in previous Eggy City where I used to live, there was a thrift store that it was like a chain that had two locations in the city, and one of them was in an area that was closer to a college and the other one was in an area with more like retirees, and the selection
Naturally,
at those
that's going to
two.
impact the
Yeah,
inventory.
yeah, so like obviously the one that was closer to a college would usually have stuff that was a bit more kind of trendy and contemporary because again it was like college students who were moving in or out and had to get rid of a bunch of clothes all at once, right? So a lot of the stuff you would find, more recent brands, stuff like, more stuff that follows the trends. Whereas if you went to the one that was closer in an area with more old people, you're getting a lot more, maybe not vintage stuff, but stuff, from the 80s, from the 90s, because, like, again, it's old people getting rid of their old stuff. So, old lady fashion, exactly. So, like, you're getting. It's really, I find it doesn't depend on the chain, it depends more on the area, the location.
Hmm.
One thing I did do enjoy in Japan as well is Japanese thrift stores are kind of different. So one thing I noticed was that for secondhand stores, and I'm making a distinction here because not all secondhand stores are thrift stores, but because I feel like here I am Canadian, so in Canada there is like you'll have like vintage stores which are more expensive and usually are like specialize in certain things, and then you have thrift stores which is like everything else but it's very cheap, right? Whereas I found in Japan there was a lot of stores that they weren't like upscale vintage stores, but they weren't like cheap thrift stores either. They would usually have like a very curated kind of selection, but they weren't expensive, right? So like it was definitely more expensive than what you would find at a thrift store, but it was stuff that was kind of in the like $20 to $50 range, right? So
Hmm.
it's not expensive enough to call it like a vintage consignment whatnot, but like it's definitely a step up from a thrift store. And there was a lot more of those. There was also a lot more thrift stores or secondhand stores that would specialize in specific things. So you'd have ones that would be like, this is a secondhand store specifically for secondhand goth stuff. So like, and you would go in there and it would just be like you know, used goth stuff, right? Or they would have ones for Lolita, or they would have ones that had like more of like a punk aesthetic kind of thing. So like very specific kind of ones. But the other main difference I found with Japanese secondhand stores was that here in Canada, like thrift stores work as usually as more of like a charitable thing, right? So
Yeah, I was just thinking about that.
so they take donations. You know, you put all your old clothes into like a garbage bag, and then you drive to the place, and then you drop it off, and then they sort through it there, right?
Yeah.
Whereas in Japan, and I know because I had to do this once when I was leaving because I had too many clothes to fit in my suitcase. You take your clothes to the place, and they go through them, and it's run as like a for-profit thing. So they will buy your clothes off, like they will buy your clothes for like 10 yen a piece. So like you're not like gonna make a bank off of it, but you know, there will be, because they are technically buying your clothes, even if it's for such a low price, they have a better, like they're allowed to reject stuff is what I'm saying. And when they're looking through your clothes, they do it while you're still in the store, right? So
Yeah, it's
what
like,
tends to happen,
you think
Yeah,
going
what
to
the-
GameStop almost to sell the old games, and they're not going to give you a ton, but they'll give you something, but they're not going to buy all games. And I imagine that's probably not a perfect analogy, but I'd been thinking about we really don't have that middle ground that you've been talking about in the West, that you either have your Value Village, Goodwill type of situation where it's, okay, here's all my stuff, I'm just donating it in a big bag, and they'll just price it, put it out. Some of it they might just throw out if it's complete garbage and not suitable for sale. Or you're going to have the very high-end consignment where there's going to be either purchasing or that you set the price, and that they will give you some portion of that upon sale, etc. But that middle ground here doesn't really end up existing.
Yeah, but the other thing is that with thrift stores is that because the thrift stores here, they accept everything and they sort through it after they receive it, right?
Yeah.
So they get a lot of stuff inevitably that's just straight up garbage, right? Like it's dirty, it's broken, it's just not in sellable condition. But because in Japan, because they can reject stuff, I found that even within thrift stores, like the conditions of stuff was just a little bit better, because again, if you want the store to accept your stuff, there's a greater incentive to, like wash it before you send it in, to like, not bring in straight up garbage, to, fix stuff. So if something is like, has a button that fell off or something, to like fix it before you bring it in. So yeah, that was my experience. I found it was very different there. I want to go back to Japan just for the sake of going to secondhand stores. Because yeah, here, I also think here there's also the issue of like people who try to make a business of it, of going to thrift stores and finding stuff that they can then like resell for a higher price on Depop or whatnot. I have great distaste for those kinds of people. I do not associate with them, but I don't know if that's as much of an issue in Japan as it is here. I imagine there's probably people who might do something like that, but it's not. I don't get the impression that it's like the issue that it is here, of people on that grind, like.
Why am I not
trying
surprised to hear that there are fashion
Yeah.
scalpers?
Oh, absolutely. There are thrift store scalpers who will like go in and pick up the best stuff. And again, sometimes it's like when I say the best stuff, like what the best stuff is very subjective, right? Like when I say, oh, I found the best stuff at Value Village, usually that's like, sweaters from the 80s, which is not necessarily what these people might be looking for unless it's from like a well-known brand or something. But yeah, usually that tends to also be an issue with stores in bigger cities though. So like if you go into like a Value Village in a smaller town, you're probably not going to run into as many of these kinds of people as you would if you go into one in like, a major city or in a busy area.
Yeah. But you're also probably less likely to get the types of gems that those types of scalpers are looking for in the smaller areas.
Yeah.
For instance, my mother's really into antiquing. Most of what she does is she will go to yard sales, estate sales. She finds pieces she likes. She gets them, brings them home. But that, she has a room for her stuff, and that when the room gets full, that she will cycle out old stuff and, either donate it, sell it on eBay, etc. And that as she's going around, every so often, if she sees a piece that she knows, oh, that's by a very well-known designer, and that's distinctly underpriced. I'm gonna pick that up and sell it at, a fair market value, not crazy inflated cost, but, that then goes into her sort of, her antique fund pool, that, she's not making a
Mhm.
business out of it, but, that's how she keeps her hobby funded. Um, but I know that there are folks that go out, all right, I'm gonna get to the Value Village. I know that they restock every Tuesday at 9 a.m. and I'm gonna be right there and I'm gonna go and comb through everything. I'm gonna buy all the stuff from brand and then it goes on to eBay the next day at percentage increase, and that you see that in TCGs and other collectible hobbies, and it causes a lot of friction in the market, shall we say.
Yeah. Well, I see this event especially that was another big difference I noticed for secondhand market for stuff in Japan versus here was retro video games. Um, because here I feel like a lot of people who buy retro games are people who like they do it for the collecting reason. They do it for collecting reasons, rather than for actually playing it. Whereas I felt like I saw a lot of like super reasonably priced retro stuff when I was in Japan, just like in Book Off. Like it was just there. There was nothing wrong with it. It was just, somebody had it and they didn't want it anymore. Um, and yeah, like stuff would be sold for super cheap. It's so weird to be like, oh, people are paying like hundreds of dollars for an NES here, and then like I go to Japan and like just like a random secondhand store in a regular area, and it will have like a bunch of Famicoms in various states of disrepair just like kind of stacked on top of each other in the store.
I
So like
just want
it's
more
just
nerdy secondhand
yeah.
stores in general. Everything that goes into secondhand stores here, it's fashion or garbage, and whenever you get tech stuff, it's almost always the garbage. I want us to have, book offs and mandarakes and such where nerds can sell all their cool stuff,
Mhm.
and that I can find things and go sort of treasure hunting. We don't have that here.
Yeah, well, I just think it's also too just like I just don't know if the first-hand market here exists in a way that it could support a second-hand market. Because I think
Hmm.
one thing with Book Off is that, like, for instance, there is insane amounts of manga at your average Book Off, right? But that's also because, in comparison to Americans, Japanese people buy an insane amount of manga, right? So people, the rate at which people are like buying new stuff, reading it, getting rid of it, like it's happening at at like a fast enough speed. Whereas I just don't know if something like that, like if people are willing to like go through stuff and get rid of stuff that fast. I just don't know if that happens as much here, I think.
I suppose, yeah, and I certainly wouldn't
Yeah.
expect to see multiple per city that you can sometimes see in Japan for book offs, but I guess I'm sort of surprised that there aren't at least a couple that I feel like you could have one in New York, one could probably go in LA, pick another California city, a couple major cities that,
Mhm.
and that I can imagine there being not an industry of secondhand like there is in Japan, but I have to imagine that there could be one franchise that could open a store in major regions and it would be sustainable. But I do agree that
Mhm.
there's there's simply more product in the market, exponentially so, in Japan that is able to facilitate the types of stores that they have
Mhm.
there. You do have a very good point.
Yeah, I feel like as well, people here tend to hold on to stuff longer.
Hmm.
For whatever reason, I don't know if it's like a logistics thing of just houses here are bigger so people can store more stuff, or if people just have like a different sentimental attachment to certain things. But yeah, I do feel like people here, like, I feel like tend to hold on to like, their games, their books. They tend to hold on to them longer, I think.
There may also be something of just since at least going farther back historically, especially if you're going 80s, 90s, early 2000s, that there were fewer products that, the sheer number of volumes of a given manga or game is going to be less than it would be in Japan just because it was much
Mhm.
more popular there before it was really popular here. So folks might be holding on to it. I almost want to say out of fear that they might not be able to find it again if they decide that they want it. Whereas in Japan, you can feel relatively assured, unless you have something really, really unique, that, okay, I'm running out of space. I can sell these manga volumes because I know that I can go to any given book off, any given store, firsthand or secondhand. I might pay a bit more some places than others, but that if I really want to add this to my collection again down the line, I can. Whereas in the West, that's not necessarily as assured.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I remember, I think it was around the time that the Fruits Basket reboot had come out, like the anime reboot, and there was like obviously like renewed interest in the Fruits Basket manga, which I believe at the time had not been published, like it had been out of print in English for
Probably a decade
several
at that
years.
point.
Yeah, so like you had a lot of people who all of a sudden were like, "Oh, I want to read this thing. I prefer having like physical copies."
And can't find them.
Yeah, I am not going to pay that much for physical copies, right? So I feel like that happens a lot with specifically, I guess specifically to manga that didn't do that well here.
Yeah, or just ones
I
that
guess
were
it's like,
really earlier on.
yeah, it's like how I feel like it's the same thing. It's kind of like how Earthbound is here. How like Earthbound cartridges here are like a rare collectible because like the
Circulation
game
was
didn't.
it was so small.
Yeah, like, well, yeah, because the game sold comparatively poorly here in English.
There's a
Whereas
reason we
in
never
Japan,
got Mother 3.
yeah, whereas in Japan, it sold a lot better. So there was a lot more copies in circulation, which means that you're going to find Mother 2 for like 500 yen in a book off, right? Um, or I think that's the same thing with Ghost Trick. If you've ever heard of Ghost
Yeah.
Trick, is I remember like,
Because I remember that got, I don't know if
yeah,
it was ported or remade, but
yeah, I
it
got a
came out
port.
on Switch a couple years back,
Yeah.
and I remember a bunch of people getting really excited when it was announced.
Well, yeah, because it came out right. I think it came out towards the end of the DS's lifespan. But like because it came out in Japanese and then in English, like I think the English version came out like right at the end. So it didn't have a lot of time to sell. So obviously, again, there's way fewer English copies in circulation, which meant that trying to get your hands on one was a lot more expensive. Like I would see them show up at conventions every once in a while, and they would like, and I know like convention booth game sellers are usually pricing things up, but I felt like they were even overpriced by those standards. Like again, this was a game that there just wasn't that many copies of comparatively. Yeah. So yeah, it's like that. It's like that.
Yeah. I remember even in the 2010s when I wanted to buy Ace Attorney games, that the actual physical print circulation of the original Ace Attorney trilogy was very low. They printed a crap ton of Investigations Miles Edgeworth. I could find one of those at any given GameStop, but if I wanted to find Justice for All, Trials and Tribulations, I had to go online and sort of check the, online inventory that says, all right, this one store in your area has one copy, and then call in advance and be like, hey, it says online that you have this. Do you actually have it in stock? Yes. Okay, cool. I'm going to be there in an hour, and I am going to gamble that no one's bought it because, fortunately, there wasn't crazy demand for it, but that you had to actually track those down, and that was 2-3 years after release. It wasn't an absurd amount. It wasn't a decade down the line. I have to imagine if you're trying to find the original release of those now, it's probably a nightmare.
Yeah, I mean, meanwhile in Japan, I think I bought like loose cartridges of the entire original trilogy, and I think they were like 200 yen each.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, they're probably 1,000 yen at most. Maybe you can get that for the entire trilogy.
Yeah, I think, well, obviously the ones that are still in the case, like still in the box, are more expensive, even if the box is open. But yeah, loose carts can, yeah, they're usually under 500 yen for like DS games. Yeah, I actually specifically bought a Japanese 3DS when I was there because I bought a bunch of like DS and 3DS games and they're region locked, right?
So like,
yep. The Switch games I could play on my own Switch that I had already, but yeah, I had to buy like a second 3DS to play my 3DS games.
Now, even if so you're able to get them and you have the Japanese 3DS because it's region locked, do these games usually have English settings natively, or do you just need to either know Japanese or use a translation app basically per page?
Well, I know I use them. I actually bought them to use them as Japanese study material. So,
Ah.
um, part of it is that. Weirdly enough, some of the Ace Attorney Japanese copies, do actually have the English version in there. Like you can switch to English, which I was surprised about because the English versions don't let you switch to
Yeah.
Japanese. Um, but yes, I remember like I booted up Ace Attorney for the first time, and it was like, "What language?" And I'm like, "Excuse me." Um, but yeah, you could play it in English on the Japanese cart for some reason.
Ah.
Um, but yeah, the other games I got, they're fairly simple. I got Animal Crossing New Leaf, and then I got a few dress up games because I'm a big fan of the oh god, the marketing for this series is a nightmare internationally because in Japan it's called Girls Mode, in English it's called Style Savvy, in Europe it's called I think like New Style Boutique or something. It has like a different name in every region. Um, but yeah, I wanted to play the original Japanese versions of them, and yeah, I guess they're good practice. You get a lot of clothing related vocabulary from them. Um, Animal Crossing New Leaf, I booted up once, and it seems that whoever had the cartridge previously did not delete their town before they brought it to the store. So I booted it up, and then I got really sad
Oh,
because
you
I
didn't have the
exited
heart
the
to delete
house.
it via.
I didn't have the heart to delete it, and I left the house, and you know you got your little villager who's like, oh, I think the person who had it previously, their name was Midori, because that was the name that they were calling me.
It's like, oh, I
So I was
haven't
like,
seen you in ages. How have you
I know it's like
been?
it's been 6 years since I saw you, and I'm like, oh god, I'm not the person you believe me to be. And then I haven't opened up the game since. I just feel too sad. I'm like, do I live a lie to all these like villagers, or do I delete the
But are
town
you
forever? And I'm
torturing them
like,
more by leaving them in stasis without
yeah.
their friend who will never actually be coming back anyways?
Yeah. So I'm like, oh god,
The
the,
ethics
the,
of
the
Animal
ethical,
Crossing save files.
the ethical conundrum where I'm like, I guess do I just live my life as Midori now? Am I just? And I mean, I'm assuming Midori was a child because all the names are. I don't remember what the names were, but I just remember looking at them and I'm like, these are kind of generic. So I feel like Midori might have been like a kid. Um, but yeah, I'm just like, oh god, like who am I?
Uh, well, but we actually do have Animal Crossing music playing in the background right now. You mentioned that this is something that you have in a lot of your streams, and I always like to have stuff that my guests use to sort of bring the mood together, and it works for me as well because I've played every Animal Crossing game since the GameCube myself, so very near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to say that I'm an Animal Crossing super fan, but I'm not really like I like the aesthetic. I think New Horizons is like peak cute. Like I love the way the characters move. I love the like just general like roundness, and everyone just looks so pleasant. It's just like I feel like Animal Crossing has hit the point of like being cute without being like over the top about it. Like
Yeah, it's
it's
very
cute, but
quaint
like it
cute.
yeah, like it's not like it's not like cute in a way that anybody would find annoying, right? Like I feel like when you think of like the amount of people who get annoyed by something like I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example of
It's
something
not
that's like
Hello
more
Kitty
over the
levels of
top.
cute.
Yeah, it's like a very like leisurely kind of cute that I think can appeal to all ages. I've only been playing since New Leaf though. I had a friend when I got my 3DS in high school. I had a friend who was like, "Yeah, I don't really play this anymore. Do you want it?" I'm like, "Okay, sure, free game."
Honestly,
So
good time to
yeah,
start. New Leaf might
yeah.
just be the best game of the series.
I mean, I don't know. I think like I don't have anything to, like any of the previous games to compare it to. I know it's the one that people tend to favorably compare stuff to, but sometimes I also wonder is it the best one, or is it just like the one that people played at the right time in their life? Because I feel like a lot of the people who I see like praising New Leaf incessantly are people who were like either my age or slightly younger when it came out. So it's
Nah,
like, yeah,
I've
they were
like I
just
said, I've
like at
played
the
all of
right
them. I
time.
think New Leaf actually just has the best features across the board. That New Horizons does a lot of things that are very different and new, and that feature-wise, it's actually difficult, in my opinion, to compare New Horizons to anything else in the franchise because of just the literal new horizons of what it does with crafting.
Mm-hmm.
That really hadn't been done before, but New Leaf does a lot with your role as the mayor and ways that you're actually able to really impact the infrastructure of your town that really didn't exist before in the early games. That it was a very big step up compared to what you had in Wild World, which was the first DS game, and obviously far more so than the original. New Horizons obviously adds a lot of quality of life things, adds a lot of complexity, admittedly, with the crafting and other things, which is it is a net positive, certainly. The mileage will vary based on taste, certainly. The big complaint I have is the one that's basically universal for Animal Crossing fans, and it's that they slashed the amount of villager dialogue. That the sheer pool of conversations that you can have with villagers is probably 20 to 25% of what it was in some other games.
Yeah, I mean, some of it might just be that there's more villagers now, so they have to like reshuffle like what kind of dialogue you can get. But I know I've seen some people say that the villagers are not mean to you anymore, but like I don't know if that's a thing people are still looking for from Animal Crossing games.
I don't.
Yeah.
I will agree with that. That it is true. Villagers used to be a lot more. They weren't outright savage, but some of them had to warm up to you, and that was sort of a journey in of itself. That you would have this crotchety old man neighbor who just was real grumbling, me like, what are you doing? Blah 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 blah. But that after talking with them for weeks and months, that they would become this very warm, friendly old grandpa or something. And I think there was a certain excitement and satisfaction in seeing that actual character growth. But I also do agree that most folks probably aren't looking to play Animal Crossing and then, all right, one of my 2 starting villagers just isn't nice. That's not really going to be a good player experience. There's probably a middle ground, but I'm generally going to agree with you that it makes sense why they removed the more pointed comments and prickly attitudes of some villagers.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like sometimes when it comes to criticism in Animal Crossing, I feel like there is some like legitimate criticisms, but then there's some I look at and it's just kind of like old thing good, new thing bad that I feel is just kind of like, I mean, this isn't a criticism, it's just a thing you didn't like, right?
Yeah.
Which, again, is something I feel like when I critique things, is something I have to keep trying to be careful about, where I'm like, what is the difference between this is bad and this is just not for me, Like, because there's games that I've not liked, but I can I can imagine the kind of person that would like it, right? So it's like, okay, this isn't bad. Like, this isn't like, destroying the fabric of society or the fabric of gaming or anything, but like, it's just not to my taste. Like I guess it's something that you kind of develop as over time of just like, this is literally making up a guy, but like making up a guy in a positive way of like, this is a guy that would like this, right? Like,
for me, I'm a very casual Animal Crossing game. I'm a very casual fan of a lot of things, that even ones that I have played for a long time. I've played every Animal Crossing game. I've played every Pokemon generation. And that, over the years, these franchises grow and change. Certain features come and go. Certain things end up being different. And there's certain things that I'll critique and be like, okay, I feel like this game just didn't do this thing as well as it used to do. But I very rarely will say, oh, this feature makes the game worse. I point out New Leaf as being really good is because it simply had a couple features just based on the flavor of the game where you're the mayor of your town. That's something that isn't quite the same in all the others. And I think that the suite of features that allowed ended up creating a bit more depth and interesting choices and customization. But that's also why I say I think it's so difficult to really even compare it to New Horizons, because you can literally terraform. Terraforming changes the landscape literally and figuratively. The thing I'll criticize about terraforming is please, I want terraforming to be in every game from now on. I think it was a a wonderful addition to the game. And being able to place items outside is something I say, why didn't we have this earlier? But please, Nintendo, for the love of God, let us change more than one pixel of land at a time. Let me multi-craft. Let me just, say,
Yeah.
okay, I have enough in my pockets to make 10 blocks of wood or whatever, as opposed to having to just mash A ad nauseum for 3 minutes. I just want those little things. All right, let me do this thing more efficiently.
Yeah, my thing I think with terraforming was, if you're gonna make terraforming this easy, please make building stairs this easy as well. Because that was my thing of
Yes.
just when you terraform an area, but either you're waiting for the staircase to be built or you're still trying to decide where to put the staircase, and then you have to wait, you have to use your ladder awkwardly. That I think got frustrating, and it was like,
Or if
I
you
know that this is my
misplace the stairs by 1 pixel.
yeah, it's like, I know that this is my own fault for building it the way that I did, but also, like, again, if you're gonna have multiple levels, please just make it easier to go through those. But yeah, no, because, like, the thing with video games for me is that I did not grow up as a gamer, TM. Like, I did, as a kid, I guess I didn't really play games. Part of it was just because, like, my parents were very much the kind of people that were like, screen's bad, read a book. And so I read a lot of books. But I think also some of it, too, is like, video games are for boys, and I'm not a boy. I'm a girl. I'm a girly girl. So, like, it wasn't until I was a bit older that I actually started, like, properly gaming. Like, I had a DS as a kid. I had a Wii as a kid. The Wii was my first home console, even though I'm probably old enough that the GameCube would have been my first if I would have gamed earlier. And I had, like, Nintendogs and Mario Kart and whatnot. But, like, yeah, I can't say, a lot of the time, I feel like I missed out on that, like, window of, like, when you develop your actual gaming skills as a kid. I feel like I kind of missed out on that window, so I've had to, like, kind of learn everything from scratch in terms of, like, this is how this works, this is how this should feel to do, kind of. So, like, there's a lot of kinds of games, like, I'm very bad with platformers. I'm very bad with some stuff in 3D, I think. Anything that requires, like, aiming, I'm not great with. But, yeah, and it's just, I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like, it's very cope, but it's also just like, yeah, I do feel like I missed out on, like, that window of time for gamer skill acquisition that I think some other people might have gotten.
Yeah.
So
The GameCube was my first home console. I had a Game Boy Color a couple years prior to that, and that, generally speaking, my parents weren't super limiting on the games I played, except when it came to guns. That they were not of the mindset of, oh, video games cause violence, cause gun violence, but just like, if you play a game with guns, if you play Halo or whatever at a friend's house, whatever, that's fine, but not super keen on the idea of you playing a game with guns at home every single day. Fantasy violence, if there's swords and stabbies every so often, that's whatever. It's clearly fantasy. Platformers, Pokemon, whatever, no problems there. But what that wound up doing for me is, I am garbage at doesn't matter if it's FPS or third-person shooters, because I did not play those games regularly, and they have a very definite learning curve to them. I never really got into them, and I have always felt that the barrier to entry is just so high now that if you want to be competitive, you either know how to play and have invested a lot of time to get good, or you haven't. And could I invest the time to get good at shooters now? Yes, but I don't really have the interest in investing the amount of time I would need to be competitive, so I'm just bad at shooters.
Sometimes I feel too with multiplayer stuff, it's not just about being competitive, it's just about being, like, just good enough that other people aren't gonna yell at you. Like,
I'm not good enough for people to not yell at me.
yeah, I don't play a lot of, like, multiplayer, like, games aside from, like, Mahjong Soul. I feel like is the only, like, multiplayer online one that I do, because, like,
Well,
it
that's
just
an
doesn't
individual
sound
thing,
like
so if you're bad, you're not
Yeah.
dragging the team down.
Yeah, exactly. And, like, the worst people can do is spam an emote at you in Mahjong Soul. Like, you're not gonna get, like, toxicity, right? Like,
Yeah.
so yeah, usually it's just something I don't think I need. I can live without it. I can live without it.
Yeah. Now, we sort of skated past it very briefly, but I'd mentioned Ace Attorney games, and I know that that's also a franchise that you really enjoy and that you're just into visual novels, plot-driven games in general. Is Ace Attorney the first franchise that you played in terms of visual novels, or did you start somewhere else?
I'm trying to think because, like, I definitely probably played something else before Ace Attorney. Did I start with Ace Attorney? I'm trying to think back of like
Ace
the
Attorney
previous.
is definitely, at this point, it is the definitive, I'm pretty sure, best-selling visual novel series, asterisk, in the West. Couldn't tell you what
Yeah.
it is in Japan, but I feel like far and away Ace Attorney is the king of visual novels in the West.
I'm just trying to think of like what my previous, because like I'm trying to like track backwards, like backtrack of like what was I really into before Ace Attorney, and like game wise, I think it was like Earthbound, I think, and then before that it was like Undertale, and neither of those are visual novels. So yeah, I guess
No.
Ace Attorney must have been the first.
Mhm.
Well, yeah. So I think Ace Attorney is also. Again, I'm gonna put on the glasses because I'm about to like actually you about
Oh boy.
this. So Ace Attorney is only sort of a visual novel. Basically, the definition of visual novel in the English-speaking market, I think, is a little looser than it is in Japanese.
I would agree. I would definitely agree.
So, because like in Japanese, I believe like stuff like Ace Attorney is considered like adventure games. I think that's usually what they would call it.
There's some in Japan that
Whereas,
total
yeah.
visual novel that there really is no gameplay or minimal in terms of you are only making dialogue branch decisions. There's not the exploration phase. There's not a mid-game loss condition that you might get a bad ending in the story, but you can technically get a game over at any point in the courtroom. That's not really going to be the case in a conventional visual novel.
Yeah, so usually like what they would call visual novel in Japan, and again, some people also like, I think there's also like a distinction people make between like visual novel and kinetic novel, which is like one has choices and the other one doesn't, but something like Umineko, which is just like, or Fate, which is just like straight up text on pictures. There are sprites and there is text, and in some of these you might have choices, like, you know, stuff that, or bad ends or something, but there's no like gameplay, right? Like it's not like Ace Attorney where it's like a puzzle solving thing, right?
Yeah.
Usually that's what's considered visual novel. And to be fair, I understand why the distinction is made in Japanese but not in English, just because there's just way more games in the genre in Japanese than there are in English.
There are not many pure visual novels in the West to warrant a independent phrase.
Yeah, and like I've always wondered why that is. Like I know some people are just gonna be like, "Oh, Americans hate reading," but like it has to be deeper than that as to why like this genre has taken off in Japan and become its own little niche market, whereas it just like kind of didn't over here, with the exception of people who were already interested in the Japanese stuff. There are definitely like English original language, like original visual novels, but like I wouldn't say that it's as big of a market as it is in Japan.
There are not a bunch of AAA visual novels that you're going to get that are super highly anticipated. There aren't entire companies basing their model around visual novels that are, you know, bigger than a small indie house, at least in the West.
Yeah. Which, to be fair, a lot of Japanese visual novels are also, like, at the very least, they might start as small indie projects. Like, sometimes they stay small and indie, and then sometimes they get bigger, but, like, it's very much also kind of like, because, like, compared to other kinds of video games, right? Visual novels are very cheap to make.
Yeah.
Because, like, it's pretty much like you don't have to.
Sprites and backgrounds and coding logic is going to be just text branches that you're not having to worry about stat calculations and having to render 3D in real time and such.
Yeah. More of the work is like, it's mostly like writing and art, right? Like the amount of, and yeah, obviously that stuff costs money too. And the people that do it should be paid well, but it's not like you need like a giant team behind it, right? So I think But yeah, so my point is, yeah, like the definition of visual novel, sometimes I feel like the definition of a visual novel in English has just become like game with too many words in it. Like I remember like Steam had a visual novel sale once, and I remember scrolling through it and I'm like,
Oh gosh,
some of you are
I
not
don't
visual
trust
novels.
Steam whenever they do genre tags.
Yeah, it's like some of you I don't think are visual novels. I just don't think you count. Like
You
some of
keep
them were
using
just
that
like,
word. I do not think it means what you think it means.
yeah, exactly. Like some of it is like, I'm pretty sure that's like an RPG that just has like a
Yeah.
very strong focus on story. I wouldn't call this a visual novel, but like I guess it does have a lot of text in it. So like, sure, I guess, fine.
But you can't call
yeah.
Final Fantasy a visual novel.
Yeah. It's like that. What's that one picture of that one lady that's just like, sure, why the hell not? Like, that's just like, that's how I feel with a lot of stuff that's tagged visual novel on Steam. I'm just like,
Yeah.
I guess.
You bring up an interesting question of why didn't visual novels gain traction in the West? And my speculation, I think there's two major reasons. I think one, that simply with a lot of the first visual novels being developed in Japan meant that it was able to hit those markets earlier, become more formative for them, and be something that grew along with the market more naturally. Whereas when they finally get stateside, that they're already competing against RPGs and action games, which are going to have they're going to have a wider audience to begin with. So then for something niche to come in, it's going to be even more difficult for it to really get a foothold in the market. I think the other part... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish.
No, because the second part is a mini rant unto itself, so I will let you go first.
Okay. I mean, I think another factor is probably also that, like, it's hard to cross-pollinate in a genre like visual novels because the average visual novel is way more expensive to translate than the average, like, platformer or something.
True.
Because with
Very
other games,
true.
like a platformer or an action game, you might have to, there might be some bits of story to translate.
Yeah.
You'll probably have to translate stuff like UI or like instructions.
Yeah.
But
there is no translation cost
to,
for controls.
Yeah. So like, and even some of the really early games, they were kind of already using English words already in a lot of the times, like if you look for like really old games. So yeah, it was easier to bring something like Super Mario over because like there is relatively few words in there and it's very easy to change those up, right? Whereas something with like, something that basically has
where
already
words
has
are
the word
the entire
novel.
game and phrasing and translation and intent matters, that you can have a clunky translation in Mario that if it was, thank you, Mario, our princess is another castle in, or whatever. If there had been a mistranslation there, if there had been clunky phrasing in something like that, it doesn't really matter. It might become retroactively quaint, but it's not going to significantly impact the gameplay experience. In a visual novel, if you have a slight tonal shift of just what is perhaps a literal translation versus intent, that's going to make you misread what this love interest is saying and might impact your response as a player to their advances. That it can completely change the actual intent and fabric of the game, that you need to make sure it's done right. And just in terms of sheer volume of words, there's exponentially more.
Yeah, well, plus too, like, I think as well as probably in the past, because like the history of like Japanese to English translation is something that's very interesting to me, especially when it comes to like, games and anime and such. Because like a lot, like I know one thing I remember reading about is that like, and to an extent this is still done today, but like a lot of old games were translated relatively out of context, right? Like if you were the translator, you would receive like an Excel spreadsheet. And I mean, they still use Excel spreadsheets today, but like you receive an Excel spreadsheet of all the text you need to translate, and you would probably not be given that many screenshots of the game. You would not be given that many context, like that much context.
Yeah.
So that's, you'll see this a lot in like RPGs especially, so something like Final Fantasy, where it's like, there's a line that makes absolutely no sense, and it's probably because the translator did not have access to like anything else in this scene, and they were probably just translating these lines one at a time without knowing like where these characters are, what they're looking at, like.
Yeah.
So obviously with a visual novel, this would be a problem because that's
the
like
point.
you have to have context. And obviously there's way more text in a visual novel, so it would be much easier to get context. But yeah, for things like if you don't know what the sprites look like and you have to translate something, or like translate like a physical description of the character, for instance, like if you screw something up, if there's something in the translation that doesn't match with what people are seeing on the screen, people are gonna go, huh?
Yeah.
And so just like things like that where it's like, in the early days, context was like a very precious resource. Nowadays, I think it's easier just because the pipeline between and the communications between like.
Oh, uh-oh. Now, Eggy had mentioned to me that there is
Screenshots.
Oh, wait, we're
character
back.
designs. Yeah.
Sorry, you froze up for a
Feedback
minute
is
there.
faster. Oh, I'm sorry. I think
You mentioned earlier that your computer had a bad habit of occasionally blue screening.
We're back. I think it was just an internet hiccup. But yeah, the pipeline, I think, for like feedback is a lot faster, I think, than it used to be. So if there's questions or things that are unclear, or usually I imagine they're probably given better.
Yeah, just
access
they get more
to stuff.
context.
Yeah, like So, but yeah, I imagine back in the day, like to translate a visual novel would have been like probably more difficult.
Yeah. So,
but I know
What?
there has been, though, in recent years, as old games have been getting remasters, there has been some like old visual novels and adventure games that have been getting English translations for the remaster. So I think like Famicom Detective Club, I think, has gotten. Yeah, they've gotten a lot more translations in English for that, just because they're like, well, we're releasing this anyway, so.
Yeah, I actually played the Famicom Detective Agency. Very fun games. I can also see how back in the day it would be prohibitively just clunky and expensive to do that type of translation, especially if it's not something that you expect to be a console seller abroad.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'd mentioned that there was one other thing that I think may have contributed to visual novels not getting much traction in the West, and it relates to something else that didn't get much traction in the West. I mentioned the one point of origin that the market that it's developed in is naturally going to get it first, and the earlier the better, so more acceptance. But my big actually thing is about the definition of anime, because I really enjoy anime. I've got a lot of friends who are in the industry and have done some stuff tangentially, just via conventions and whatnot. And one thing I have to explain very frequently to people who just do not know about anime is that anime is not a style, anime is not a genre, it is literally a point of geographic origin. It is just animation that was produced in Japan. Is Avatar: The Last Airbender an anime? No, because it was not primarily produced in Japan. Is Avatar: The Last Airbender an incredible series that you should watch anyway? Absolutely. It's semantics at that point. But if you're going to go with the definition, quote unquote, that's all that anime is.
Well, I think the thing is, in Japanese too, the word anime just refers to all animation. So like,
3D is
Mickey
still
Mouse
anime.
cartoons, yeah, that's anime. Like Ghibli is anime, One Piece is anime.
Yep, it is
like,
just anything animated.
Shrek is anime.
Yep, I would not. There's an interesting point that you bring up of what would be different definitions of terms. That in Japan, Shrek would probably be considered anime, yes, because it is animated. For Western definition of anime, like I said, I consider it the geographic origin. So Shrek wouldn't be anime because a Japanese studio did not animate Shrek. But I think there becomes something very interesting, and what I tell a lot of people when I describe anime and explain that once point of geographic origin, I think a lot of why that the anime industry and a lot of perceptions have developed the way they have in the West is because in the West, animation is considered juvenile. That
Mhm,
there are
mhm.
exceptions, certainly, but the vast, vast majority of animation historically that is produced in the West is either children's programming or it is crude humor. Simpsons, it's South Park, that, there's exceptions, and there's certainly more now than in the past. But even now, most of the time, people in the West will look at animation and say, well, I'm not going to watch that. I don't like animation that is for children. And that you could do a thesis level study that I don't feel equipped to comment on why societally that perception does not exist in Japan of just animation is another medium for storytelling. And simply because of that, the types of stories that you will get animated in Japan are ones that would never happen in the West. That if Game of Thrones had been written in Japanese initially, it would have been anime. It would not have been live action.
Mhm,
Well,
mhm.
it may have also gotten a live action in addition to an anime, but I think it would have been an anime first.
Yeah.
And that, for whatever reason, since they don't have that societal limitation really just mentally on what animated content can be, you get more in that here in the West, since we don't have many of those types of options. That's, I think, why a lot of people tend toward anime. If you really like animation and want to get different types of stories, you just don't really have options that aren't produced in the West, or that are produced in the West.
Mhm.
And I wonder to an extent what that might also apply to visual novels, because, again, historically, I feel like video games are also largely considered juvenile. That,
Mhm.
even before the whole, era of the gamer type of thing, that back in the day, very few video games were things that adults would play. That Tetris is sort of this giant asterisk unicorn exception to it all, but that generally speaking, video games have always been marketed towards younger demographics, and that even up until the past decade or two, that if you were an adult playing video games, people would be like, what? Oh, what was that blue screen thing I was mentioning? Yeah, Eggy will probably be back momentarily. She had warned that occasionally her computer would crash out.
No, I'm back. I'm back.
Oh,
I'm back.
we
Hold
are
on.
back.
No,
We
don't
are
go anywhere.
back.
Don't go anywhere. We're back. We're back. Okay, I think I was an internet hiccup. That was an internet hiccup because.
But yes, anyways,
No,
that's
I'm
my
still
mini
here.
rant.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can hear you.
No,
I
I
can hear you.
definitely.
So I think
Oh,
that.
you can't hear me?
I can hear you. But yeah, to put a bow on that, I think in the West, because many people consider video games juvenile as well, I think that really hindered the spread of something mature like you will get for visual novels.
Okay, hold on. Are you online? Yes.
Yeah. Please stand by.
Please stand by. I might need to re-enter. I think we might need to take a
Do I
break
need to-
actually because I think we'll have to set up the VTube studio again. I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened.
Okay,
It's very rare that the internet like goes out completely, but I don't know. Maybe somebody
Yeah.
like bumped the router or something.
As I double check, can I bring this up? Okay, cool. Yes, it does work that way. Does this bring up things? No, it doesn't. I love this. This is great. This is great. It doesn't actually capture it. I'm just going to end the collab and then restart the collab, and hopefully that will work.
Okay, hold on. I will jump back in. Oh, do I have to put in
That's
the
the
password
benefit
again?
of using
Hold
the game capture mode, is that I can bring up the VTube Studio UI and it doesn't appear on stream.
on. Yay! Okay, hold on.
Oh yeah, as your shot and
Input the
Cat
password
mentioned, then you show
again.
people who think Tetris is an exception to the T-spin triple. I don't understand T-spins. They scare me. T-spins are terrifying. It is entrancing to watch a Tetris master play that game, but I once sort of read the rule of how it scores and what it does, and I understand the generic concept of, okay, if you spin the block that you can get it to fit even after it's landed, but I do not understand the scoring mechanics and how all that works.
Okay, I appear to be back online. I don't know why it's giving me lag, and I do not see you. You are...
Well, there you are.
Do you see me? Because
I see you.
Oh, okay. I still... Okay. That's all... I guess that's all that's important, because I don't see you, but as long as you see me, that's okay.
Yes, I do see you.
Okay.
Unfortunately, you were placed basically
I see
right
you
back
now.
where you were.
There you are. There you are. Yeah, there you are. Okay.
Yeah.
We're good. We're saved.
Yeah, that is my big rant on video games also considered juvenile, therefore visual novels didn't have as much of a chance as they could have.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I wonder too, because like, I'm not even sure if it's just a matter of like America and Japan, because I think about this with comics as well, is that like European comics, I mean, they're not like not for kids, but they definitely feel like more of an all ages kind of thing compared to American comics, which until fairly recently felt like they were mostly just aimed at children.
Yeah.
And then you have like Japanese comics, which were more for all ages. So yeah, I feel like this might not even just be like a West versus East thing. I think it's like an America specific thing. Like this is something that is happening in America and almost exclusively America, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's a really interesting analogy, and I don't know too much about European comics, but now that I think about it, the few non-Marvel DC superhero types of comics that I have seen are usually European in origin, and like even for board games, that there's the whole concept of a Euro game because they were a lot more, I don't want to say highbrow, but frankly complex. That there were a lot of mechanics and strategy and things that were very big in European game design, whereas most board games, even in the U.S., it's Monopoly. It's juvenile. It's stuff that is made for kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or at least has to be like understandable for children.
Yeah.
Like, I guess that is just like a feature of.
Why the heck?
Well, I guess I'm gonna loop Canada into this too.
Yeah,
I'm gonna loop Canada into this too.
That's why I generally sort of say the West. That Europe doesn't really feel like East or West. They're just Europe. They're Europe, and they're doing their own thing.
Usually I just say North America.
Yeah, that works
because
too.
I feel like
why is
everything
North
in North America has like enough in
saying
common.
we can't have fun? Just all this boils down to is once you get to being an adult, you're not allowed to like things.
Yeah.
That's silly. And
or like if you want to like things, you have to have children so that you have an excuse to like things. You know?
Yep.
You can't go watch that animated movie. You can't go watch a Disney movie because you want to watch a Disney movie.
Nope.
You have to have a daughter, and she has to like Disney princesses, so that will give you an excuse to go see the Disney movie.
Yep. Unfortunately, we've been sort of, as a society, pushing back against that a lot, really, in the past 10, 15 years, and I feel like we're getting to a better place, but at the same time, we still have a ways to go, but we're getting there.
I think something that's interesting, I think, especially when it comes to games, is that, like, when I was a kid, obviously, like, the people who were, parent age, they didn't really grow up with video games, or the video games that they grew up with would be very simple, right? So it was always, like, constantly in the news of, like, parents being blindsided by something that was in a video game, Yeah. Whereas I feel like now, like, the people who are having kids now are, in their, like, 30s or so?
Kids are now being raised by gamer parents that, you see people putting 3 Pokemon plushies in front of their baby and, seeing which one they crawl to, and that is then what the child's room is going to be decorated with.
Yeah. So, like, but because of that, I think, like, parents nowadays, I feel like, have a better idea of, like, what is appropriate for what age. I feel like a lot of parents are able to probably, at least the ones who grew up with games, kind of, like, exercise a little better judgment when it comes to, like, what is good game for child. Whereas I feel like parents in the past were just kind of navigating this completely blind.
Yeah. But even so, that parents in Japan didn't get games an entire generation before we did, and a couple of years before we did, certainly, but
Mhm.
that eh, I don't feel like that alone can necessarily explain it. I think that explains the growth in North America. Definitely do, but I don't think it necessarily explains why we had to wait this long to get here.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
But it
Mhm.
is very fun seeing. I have friends who are having children that some of them are very much raising their kids. Instead of all right, the little boy's room is going to be decked out in sports things, and little girl's room is going to be full of pink and ballerinas, and there's still some of that, but now there's ones that'll just be all right. It's Pokemon, or it's just other fun things, other nerdy, silly, fun things, and I'm very glad that we're not only sort of bringing that to the next generation, but also I feel like gamer parents, nerdy parents are going to be inherently more open-minded to whatever the child wants to be into, that they might say, okay, when they can't speak and we have to decorate your room somehow so it's not just a room with white walls, we'll put in what we enjoy and what we think, you might enjoy as well as our child, but that usually folks that were told no growing up and then wound up finding their way to liking a thing anyways are going to be more open-minded if their child says, hey, I like this thing. I like, if gamer parents and, the 7-year-old kid says, I really like comics, that gamer parents are probably going to be like, oh, cool, great. Yeah, in comics, so we're
Yeah.
doing this now. Uh-huh.
The only thing I'm thinking is like I feel like we might get a reverse. I feel like there's gonna be at least one situation where like when like traditionally it's like my dad wants me to like baseball, but I
Yes. Oh
like
my gosh.
Mario, and then we're gonna have the like other way around. We're gonna have like a kid that's like my
Dad,
dad wants me to like Metal Gear, but I'm
Dad,
into
I
soccer. like
I want to play
they're
soccer. No child of mine
yeah,
is
yeah.
playing soccer. Get out of my house.
Or I feel like we're gonna get the equivalent of like, and I mean, I guess this still happens, but when you have like a movie that your parents watched when they were younger, or a movie that was popular when before, and then they started like, it's kind of hasn't aged that well, or hasn't aged in a way that appeals to newer generations.
Mm-hmm.
So your parents will put it on, they're like, oh, this is my favorite movie. You're gonna love this,
And the
and then you
kid's just
watch
like,
it,
I
and you're
don't
just
get
like,
it.
eh. Yeah, I feel like we're gonna get like the video game equivalent of that. Like, there's
I
just
could
gonna be
see
some
that.
game like yeah, parents are gonna pull out like Portal and they're gonna be like, "Son, this is like a historically important game. You're gonna love this
Yeah,
one." And then
or
they
even
play
just
it and they're
original
like,
Super
"Eh."
Mario Brothers. It did not necessarily age super well.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I feel like a lot of older games have like it's understandable why they didn't age super well, but like
Yeah.
yeah, like
That I'm not going to begrudge kids nowadays for liking Minecraft more than original Super
yeah.
Mario Brothers. There's more to do in Minecraft.
Mhm. Well, also too, just like I think the definition of like what a video game should be able to do has definitely expanded. So I
Yeah.
think it's more just like the expectations. I guess it's like how oh, I remember a few years ago. I think this was like 2019. I was working at a day camp, and I remember my coworker telling me about how over the weekend she had been watching, like she'd been babysitting some kids, and she put on something on Netflix that was like, it wasn't like something super old, but I think it was like a cartoon from like the 90s or something for them. And because it was in that like 4:3 aspect ratio, the kids are just like, "Where's the rest of the screen? Like, why does it look like that?"
I mean,
Because yeah,
that's
they
a
were
fair
born
question
after.
of okay,
Yeah.
I kind of see that as a positive thing from the child's perspective that they understand. All
Mhm.
right, the screen has this display and everything else displays fully. Hey, is something wrong? Did something break here?
Mhm. Yeah, and it's like a teaching moment, but it's also like I could definitely see as a kid if it's something you're not used to, how that would kind of like pull you out of it. Because yeah, it
Yeah,
does feel sometimes if you're not familiar with how TVs used to look, then like yeah, it's like, oh well, this is where like I feel like I'm missing something. Like something feels like it's not there. So like I imagine there's probably gonna be some video game equivalent of that where like kids who are used to growing up with one kind of game are gonna look at like some older games and gonna be like, why can't I see anyone's face? Kind of
yeah,
thing,
and that
like
there's probably it's not a super complex thing to explain to a child, but the first time they see something of a film that happened back before cell phones were a thing, and there's a big
mhm.
plot point, Home Alone. a child gets left at home, parents are at the airport. Well, why doesn't the kid just call the parents on the cell phone? Why doesn't he send them a text? Well, you see, they
Mhm.
don't have phones with them.
Yeah. I imagine probably a lot of sitcoms probably have that same issue nowadays too, where it's like, well, this entire plot could be solved if everybody had like
A group
a
text.
phone. Yeah, or even like a cell phone, like even like a flip phone, like just to
Yeah.
be able to contact each other when they are not at home. Like that would solve so many issues, but it's like, well, I mean at the time they just didn't, so this is just how people lived. Like I don't know. I feel like even I'm not that old, but even then too, sometimes I have the moment of like, what did people do without cell phones? Like I think about every time my bus is late. If I'm supposed to meet up with somebody and my bus is late and I'm late, and I'm like, what did people do in the olden days? Like how long did people like stand at the restaurant doorway waiting for like the other person to arrive and then they just like at what point did they give up? Maybe back in the day people were just more on time. I don't know. Like instead of just like how would you communicate like, oh, I'm gonna be like 15 minutes late because I had to catch the next bus. Like how like what did they do back in the day? Even I'm not even that old and I already have thoughts like this.
Yeah, and just you mentioned sitcoms, and we're like, all right, how many entire episodes just get invalidated by modern technology?
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because now they're written with that in mind, and it's not too
Yeah.
difficult for a kid to be told, hey, this just didn't exist now. That it might take a brief moment from them, like, okay, wow, so if I didn't have phone, whoa, that does change things. And in a way, it can actually be a teaching moment of, hey, this is what technology does. This is what it allows us to do, and this is how people did live before
Mm-hmm.
certain types of technology. But that it creates that initial mental friction moment similar to the TV aspect ratio of, hey, wait a minute, what's up here? This is different. This seems off.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think also too, even for stuff like I feel like nowadays people don't lose contact with people they've met as quickly, right? Because like there are people I have from high school that I still have friended on, on Instagram, on Facebook, on social media. Like, so, like, yeah, every so often I can just go in and check and be like, oh, so that's what they've been up to. Like, the idea of like truly losing contact, like, obviously sometimes people will delete their accounts or stop posting, but like, I feel like in the past, like, I feel like maybe high school reunions were like a bigger deal because like you truly have not seen each other for 10 years.
Yeah,
Whereas now it's like, okay, you might not have seen each other for 10 years, but like this guy moved to this city and this guy got a job here and like and you can find this out like as it happens. Like it's not like you're meeting up for the first time in 10 years and you're like,
yeah.
"Ah, so that's what's been
That's
going
a
on with you."
that's a really good point because I've had this conversation with others, but hadn't really thought of it in this context at all. But social media and modern technology has basically made class reunions obsolete because
I mean,
i-
I wouldn't
if
say
there's
they're
somebody that I really
completely
want to stay in
obsolete,
touch
but
with, that I went to high school or college with, I have the means to stay in touch with them. That back in the day, prior to that, if you lose touch with someone, that you would go to the reunion hoping to see them and maybe reconnect there. But nowadays, I'm in touch or have the ability to easily reach out to anybody, almost anybody. Some folks don't have
mhm.
social media, but statistically, the majority do. And if I don't want to stay in touch with somebody from high school, college, that I don't. And there's the whole stereotype of, all right, you go back to the reunion and you see the folks you like, but you also see all those folks you didn't like. And I feel
Yeah,
like
yeah.
nowadays, what's the point of, if I want to have a reunion, I will reach out to the friends that I have via social media and be like, hey, okay, there's this one person who's not on social media. Hopefully one person has heard from them in the past couple years, and if they're really that far off the grid, they're probably not going to go to an in-person reunion anyway. But then I'll just coordinate an in-person gathering of the people I actually want to see on our own time, as opposed to adhering to the school schedule of, this is the day and time of the 15-year reunion, and then pay a bunch of extra money out of pocket to see a bunch of people I don't want to see, plus some of the people I do want to see.
Mhm, mhm. Well, I think also too, like, I mean, I can't say I like dislike any people that I met in high school. Like, I had a fairly good high school experience, but like, I don't know. I think the thing with meeting up with people again is that like you can't exactly recreate the circumstances under which you met, right?
Yeah.
Like, I do know there are friends I haven't seen since high school, and like, yeah, they're kind of scattered away now. Like, some of them live in other countries now. Some of them like I don't know where they went. Like, but on the other hand, it's like even if we all reunited, it wouldn't be the same because it's like, yeah, I miss my friends from high school, but also like I also miss the circumstances under which we became friends,
Yeah.
and like
And
that's
how
something you
much do you
can't
have in
really.
common 10 years down
Yeah,
the line?
exactly. It's something you can't exactly recreate, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it is what it is. The time is marching onward.
Conventions are my reunions. Just
Oh yeah, yeah.
that's the annual reunion for folks, and I feel like a lot of people in VTubing and in similar nerdy circles have found conventions to be that for them as well. Just it's that one time where you know that a good chunk of people are going to be there, but also you're able to meet new people or reconnect with others. That's where you see the Venn diagrams of friend groups overlapping is always super fascinating. Of okay, I have this friend, and they're gonna go meet up with other friends, and they'll bring me along, and eh, that's something that you don't get even if you were to go to a high school reunion. Because at a high school reunion, all of the relative relationships are are predetermined and static. That you're never having
Yeah,
new people
they've
brought
already
in
happened.
outside of
Yeah.
significant others.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I feel like that's kind of how I felt about like VTubing as well because like especially in like 2021, 2022 when like people were kind of like very active, I felt like there was like a certain structure because people are like sometimes people are like, "Oh, VTubing community is like high school," and they mean it like in a derogatory way, but like I'm like VTubing community is like high school positive. Because it felt like it was the first time in a while where I felt like I was in like a social there was a social group, but there was some like not hierarchy, but there was some structure to it, right? So it's like, okay, I have me, I have my friends who I'm closest with, and then I'll have like, a circle of like acquaintances, like people who I'm not super close with, but we're like aware of each other, right? So in my
Yeah,
mind, I'm like, these are like people who are, I don't know them very well, but we go to the same school, right?
yeah.
It's like, they know me, I know them, like we might have a group project or something together, right? Um, and then I also had people who I knew from other things. So like friends I had before, who I knew from like other online communities, and you know, I knew them, but they weren't well known in my general circle, right? So in
Yeah,
my mind, I'm like, okay, those are like my friends, but they go to, they're still my friends, but they go to a different school, you
yeah,
know?
and it's similar
So,
to okay, I had friends in middle school, and that we all go to high school, and maybe one of the friends from middle school knew somebody else from one of the other feeder middle schools
mhm,
because they
mhm,
were on a
mhm.
sports team together.
Yeah,
But
exactly, exactly.
you get that, and all right, I have my friends in the marching band, and then I have friends in the drama club, and some are in both. Some are separate, and you have those circles that do and don't overlap, but that when you come back for the reunion, there you don't have new combinations necessarily. That everything is static. It's what it was there. Whereas conventions, you get additions and changes and shifts in ways that wouldn't happen at a high school.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, again, you're right in that conventions feel more like reunions because it is like a very short, like it's just like a weekend, right?
Yeah.
Um, Although I do feel at conventions, I have immensely enjoyed meeting people in real life that I've previously only known
Oh
online.
yeah.
There was no feeling quite like it. Like, I think with VTubing especially too, it's
Oh,
fun because
that.
like,
Oh yes. That was one of
yeah,
the most
because
exciting
like,
things of coming out of the pandemic. Conventions
mhm.
spinning up again, and some VTubers have no interest in going to conventions, or if they want to go to conventions, that they are full incognito. They do not want to have their face known or meet or socialize. And I love that there's that option. But I also love that there became the option for those that did want to socialize to finally do so
Mhm.
in whatever way they are comfortable with.
Well, it was just like I think the first time I met up with VTuber friends, that was like in real life was Anime North 2022. I met with Bodega, and I met with Nanase Kane and Golden Kenji and Elliot Ambers and Lika. And like, yeah, so there was like, we had our own little group. And like, again, it was just wild when you meet somebody for the first time, because it's somebody whose voice you recognize very well, but then it's coming out of a face that you have never seen before.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was like a whole experience where you have to like reorient yourself for a bit. But I think the thing is, though, is that like out of all the people I've met, I don't think I've ever met somebody who's been like, whoa, that's what they look like. Like, I've never been surprised, is what I'm saying. Like, because if you're an indie VTuber, right? Either you have a custom design, which you have tailored to your own, you know, interests and personality, or you have, you know, like maybe like a booth model, but you still chose that specific booth model, right? Like you chose to be that.
Yeah, and then even if you're not a cat girl in real life, or even if you're not, you know, demon creature with superpowers, that you have a very good point that you chose something, and that even if you're not trying to necessarily make it look like you, that it is going to have stylistic elements that you like. And that
it like reflects it reflects something about you, you know?
Yeah.
Or even if you're, even for people who are in companies, right? Like either the company auditioned you in and then designed the model for you, or you know, you auditioned and they matched you up with a model that they felt suited you.
And that means they probably saw something of you in that design, and vice versa.
Yeah, so like it's one of those things where it's like I've never seen a VTuber face reveal where I was truly, well, maybe once. I'm not gonna say who it was, but maybe like just, once. I don't.
Generally speaking.
Yeah, it's almost always just like it almost always is just like, yeah, that's kind of exactly what I expected. I've never been truly like, whoa, that's what they look like. Like they're nothing like their model. Whoa. So like, yeah, usually it's like you see someone, you're like, yep, that's about right. That's about right. Yep.
But there is the very real mental shift of, okay, this voice is coming out of not the model.
Yeah, I think that's especially true as well for people who stream with like their more natural voice. Because I feel like if there's someone who if somebody like puts on more of a character voice when they stream, I feel like when you talk to them in real life or like in person, it's like, okay, well, again, they don't sound like that all the time. But then sometimes there's people who, if they stream in their natural voice, then that's when the shift is like, oh, like you have, that's when you really have to get used to it.
Like you even get that with voice actors to an extent, that some voice actors will really modulate it for certain roles, but I know plenty of voice actors that I've seen at conventions or encountered in various ways that their role is just their voice, and that they're talking on a panel or something. It's like, wow, that's that character, but it's coming out of a human.
I think also too as well, even hearing people talk like in person directly into your ears, versus, because like there's definitely people I've met who like sound different when they have different audio setups. So like if they're talking, like I'm not even talking like voice filters or anything, like voice changers. I'm talking like, you know, if you are talking into your nice compressor mic versus a different mic versus talking in person, they will sound different.
Oh yeah.
Not like, you know, unrecognizably different. Yeah, but like there's definitely been times where I'm like, oh, you sound different in real life. Not because I think you're lying about your voice, but because you sound different when you're in like a room and there is like, you know, there's nothing in between your voice and there's nothing in between your voice and my ears, right? Like it's not like it's going through a mic, which is going through my headphones, like.
And the irony is that's more likely to hit folks who speak with their natural voice and have more mundane voices. That if somebody has a very distinct accent or affect or style of speech, that if there's a slight tonal shift, you're more likely to recognize, okay, because there's this factor to it that is very recognizable. But if somebody just doesn't, you know, I don't want to say is unremarkable, but if they have something that uh, doesn't have something as specifically recognizable on stream, it's less likely to, or rather, it's more likely to seem shifted off stream because there's no control factor there, I suppose, for lack of a better term.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Well, I think as well, I think when people stream, at least I can only speak for myself, but I feel like the voice that I use, this is more or less my natural tone, but I feel like when I stream, it's a little more of a, it's like natural, but it's performative, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that's kind of what a lot of people end up adopting, where it's like, it's not your 100% natural voice, but it's like the natural pitch, but you know, you might enunciate it a bit better.
I was
or
about
you
to say, you're
might...
probably enunciating a little bit more. You
Yeah,
might be
yeah.
talking a little bit slower than you would talk in real life. If you want it to be something that is watchable, something, you know, you do have an audience, even if you're just chatting. Whereas
Mhm.
if you're just in a casual conversation with someone, you're going to be, I don't want to say less buttoned up per se, but you know, you're going to be less. You use the word performative. That you're not going to be as nuanced, perhaps.
Mhm. Customer service phone voice. No, this is
Oh
not my customer
no,
service voice.
no,
No, my customer service voice. How can I help you? Are you finding everything okay?
you're disturbingly good at that, Eggy.
Please let me know. I'll check if we have some in the back. I've worked enough retail. I've done enough customer service, both in person and on the phone. I've I remember actually at my previous job, when we answered the phone, most of the people in the department, we weren't like specifically instructed to do this, but they said like, you know, it's probably better if you just use like a pseudonym, use like a consistent pseudonym over the
Mm-hmm.
phone so that like we can keep track of who took what call if customers ask about it later.
Yeah.
But like, you know, just so that they're not like, you know, tracking the people that work here. So yeah, over the phone, I basically had like a customer service Sona. Like I had, like, she had a different name.
Did you start making
She
lore?
was, I even like in my mind, I'm like, she had a different name. She had different hobbies. Like I had like lore for this non-existent like person.
Yeah, because you have
I
to
just
have
came up with
something
lore.
of
I'm like,
if you're
yeah.
buying time on the phone because you're waiting for somebody on your end to get back to you with an answer and something, and sometimes you'll have
Mhm.
a chattier customer on the line who,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
usually those are the ones that are easier to work with anyways, where they'll create a casual conversation to buy time. They know that you need to wait for information on your end, but at the same time, you're probably not
Uh,
going to want to tell them your life story.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I think also too, just like, because again, I feel like our customer service interactions on the phone were pretty short, but it was one of those things where like I guess they just like didn't want too much identifying information. But yeah, I tried to pick something that was close enough to my own name just because like otherwise what happens, like I remember once there was been like a customer that called and they're like, "Oh yeah, I talked to Joe previously." And I'm just like looking around the office and I'm like, "Who's Joe?"
Don't have a
Like,
Joe here.
do we have a Joe? And I'm like going into like the Microsoft Teams chat and I'm like, "Okay, which one of you is Joe?" Like, uh I think I had one coworker who had like multiple pseudonyms that he would use on the phone, but then I was like, okay, maybe this is why we should probably
Gotta pick one,
stick to
buddy.
one because yeah, because I'm just like, who's Joe? Who's Bill? Like, you just gotta like keep
We have a
track of
company
everybody.
wiki of all of our OCs.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's one of those things where it's like I didn't do this at other jobs because at other jobs I guess it was in person, so you can't really do that. But yeah, that was I mean, retail voice is, I think, a different voice because I think in person, if you try to be that fake sounding in person,
Yeah,
then
yeah,
people kind of get put
it's
off by it.
uncanny.
But yeah, yeah. Um, I don't know. I don't miss retail. I don't know. I worked retail until like 2021. So I was in like early pandemic retail, which was a very different
Ooh.
beast from like 2020 retail was a completely different beast from
Oh yeah,
2019
I'm
retail.
sure.
Yeah, like, because you had so many added responsibilities. But on the other hand, things were constantly changing, right? So sometimes, like, I worked in a big department store, so sometimes it's like, okay, we have the added responsibility of telling customers to wear a mask when they come into the store, which some of them aren't going to be happy about. But also on top of that, we also have to, like, because some of our entrances and exits were closed because they were trying to, make sure that we could count who was coming in and out of the store. So it's like, okay, so now on top of that, we also have to, like, keep track of which entrances are unlocked and open and redirect customers to those, which was constantly changing. So yeah, it was a very different beast. I switched to customer service, which was, roughly the same, but at least we didn't have to sell anything. So that was nice. But yeah, no, it was a time. It was a time.
Yeah, I
It's
never
probably
worked
improved
retail, but my
somewhat.
first job was in food service.
Ooh, okay, that's retail hard mode. That's retail
Well,
hard mode because people. Oh,
I will go more specific. I worked at an ice cream place, so it was a
okay.
different
Well,
type of thing, which I feel like I probably had it easier than your average retail and certainly easier than your average food service, that this wasn't a case of me having to go back and forth in the kitchen that, all right, I need to make sure that I'm scooping the right thing and putting in the right toppings and whatnot. But the number of things that I can get wrong are far less. The turnaround is a lot faster. And frankly, people are, statistically speaking, in a better mood when they're going to get ice cream.
yeah, that's true. That's true. I think for food service, well, okay, my logic with food service has always been that it's harder because, like, if you're working like clothing retail or something, people aren't going to be people are going to be in a bad mood if they're hungry, right? But people are not necessarily going to be in a bad mood because they lack a t-shirt, right? Like
Yeah.
clothing is a need, but it's
Yeah.
not like
And they're not
higher
going to
on like the
evaluate the
pyramid of needs,
quality
right?
of just,
Hmm.
or they're not going to associate you or the store itself necessarily with the quality in the same way that you will associate the food with the quality of the restaurant. Of, okay, this is the t-shirt
Hmm.
that you have in stock. And I walked in this
Yeah, yeah.
place usually knowing what to expect in terms of the t-shirts. And, there's no risk of my t-shirt being given to me too hot or too cold.
Hmm. Yeah, plus, like, when you go into a store, you can try on the clothing usually.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, with the restaurants, unless they have samples or something, like, if you
Yeah.
order something and you don't like it,
And
then,
there's usually
like,
no wait time. It's,
yeah,
all
yeah.
right, I see the thing, I will take it off the rack and I will try it on, buy it or not buy it. I'm not sitting
Hmm.
around waiting, wondering, hey, where is my t-shirt?
Yeah, and also, too, like, if you try on the t-shirt and, like, you don't like how it looks, like, you haven't lost anything unless you
Mm-hmm.
purchased it, right? So, like,
Yeah.
you can just put it back on the shelf. Like, nothing,
Yeah.
like, aside from time,
Yeah,
nothing has been
you've lost
lost.
2 minutes and whatever.
Yeah. So, but yeah, no. I think the only food service I've worked was I worked coffee. I worked at a coffee shop. I was a barista for like
Oh,
a
that
very
feels
brief period of
much
time.
more difficult than ice cream because there's
Oh,
so many more variables in coffee.
yeah. And also people are very picky about how for coffee specifically, people are very picky, right?
Yeah.
Because like for instance, I think around COVID, because this was like a post-COVID time when I worked there. So a lot of how coffee shops used to have that little counter where you could put in your own milk and sugar.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of them took that out, around that time. So basically, we were adding in like people they would say like, hey, can I get like one coffee medium with one sugar, one milk. But like a lot of people are very particular about how much sugar and how much milk to put in and in what order and you know. So I felt like that was more stressful because like coffee is something that people are so particular about
Yeah, and
and
that it does make a real
yeah.
difference. Whereas for me,
Hmm.
as long as
Hmm.
I'm not really skimping on the sprinkles, that if I put in a reasonable amount of sprinkles on this, and whether it's that or the exact amount on the second order of ice cream that they got, it's not going to impact the taste or the quality or what they're
Yeah, yeah.
expecting. And you talked about people being in a bad mood when going to a restaurant because they're hungry. I feel like that's 10 times worse of coffee of just, there's literal
Oh yeah,
mugs and
yeah.
memes of do not talk to me until I've gotten my coffee. You're getting
Yep,
people at
yep.
their worst.
Yeah, yeah. Well, also too, coffee is usually something people expect to get very quickly as well. So
Hmm.
usually the acceptable turnaround time for a cup of coffee is like much lower than the acceptable turnaround time for like other kinds of food. I don't know. Overall, I didn't dislike coffee. Like I didn't. I liked preparing drinks. I think the manager didn't like me that much. I didn't stay there for very long. Um, but that's like separate from whether or not I liked doing the coffee because I'm not like a coffee drinker, but I enjoyed preparing the coffee. I enjoyed making like lattes, and I was not good at steaming the milk, but I really liked doing it. Like, I felt if I would have stayed there longer, I would have gotten the hang of it, I think. But um, I don't know. My only thing was everyone stopped. Well, I mean, you can order what you want, but I hated steaming almond milk because almond milk is a lot thinner. Like the consistency is a lot thinner than regular milk. So usually when you're using a steam wand, right? Like if it's making a loud noise, usually that's a sign you're screwing up. Usually, like, you didn't put enough, there's not enough liquid, or like, you put it in at the wrong angle or something.
Hmm.
But with almond milk, even when you do it right, it's pretty loud just because it's a much thinner consistency. And that like bugged me so much because almond milk was like such a popular, it was like one of our most popular like alternative, like dairy alternatives. So people were ordering it all the time, and it was like extremely loud. But
Hmm.
again, we can't just say like no.
Yeah.
Like if we have the almond milk, we got to serve it with the almond milk. That's what they ordered.
Yeah.
So
There was something like that in ice cream as well. That different flavors had different softness to them,
mhm, mhm.
and I couldn't give you a proper explanation on why on the molecular level that mint was just super soft, very easy to work with, but that chocolate was going to be much harder, and dark chocolate was harder than that. Vanilla somewhere in the middle,
Mhm.
but that's how it was. And that there was this one time that a very nice lady walked in and ordered a gallon tub of dark chocolate. And I looked down at the cabinet full of ice cream, and I realized the dark chocolate, I put that pan in 5 minutes ago. It is fresh out of the freezer. The
It
hardest
is
it
a
is
rock.
going to be, it is a brick. And I tell
Mhm,
her,
mhm.
I am happy to get that for you, ma'am. This is going to take a couple minutes. And fortunately, she can see me physically struggling to scrape off layer by layer, that she knows I am not meaning to waste her time. I am not going about this slow. I am very visibly straining. And so she was thankfully patient, but good Lord, it took me about 10 minutes to scrape off enough to actually fill up that gallon tub.
Oh yeah, I've definitely experienced that with like even ice cream you get from the grocery store. Like I'll get like the Neapolitan ice cream with like the strawberry vanilla chocolate, and like the strawberry and vanilla will be nice and soft, and the
Yep,
chocolate will just be
chocolate
a
hard.
rock.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like
Yep.
but yeah, it's a good thing I like mint ice cream.
Yes.
Hooray, mint ice cream. I'm
Raymond ice cream
choco mint
indeed.
enjoyer.
Yes.
I love choco
Mhm.
mint.
My secret is chocolate mint, but also if you put in a peanut butter cup, that the little bit of peanut butter, you don't want to like don't order a scoop of peanut butter to be put into the ice cream, but just that little bit with the chocolate does translate really well.
Yeah, I think for me, my favorite chocolate mint ice cream. I don't know if you have these in the States, but there is a chain of ice cream places in Canada called Laura Secord. Usually they have them mostly in malls, but they have my favorite kind of chocolate mint ice cream because the mint feels mintier. Like I feel like a lot of like brands, when you get chocolate mint, the mint, it doesn't, like, it's just like green. It's just sweet and green, right? Like it's not
Yeah.
minty. But like the Laura Secord chocolate mint ice cream feels like there's actual mint in here. Like
Yeah, there's two
it's
type of
not
mint
just
ice cream.
yeah.
There's classic ice cream parlor mint ice cream, which is the green that you mentioned, and there
Mhm.
is proper mint, which is usually white.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever had the white mint, but yeah, like the Laura Secret, I think it's called like French French mint and chocolate or something. But yeah, theirs is really good. Um Also, when I was in Japan, there was a restaurant I went to that had like a chocolate mint. They had a chocolate mint sundae that I ordered like every time I went there. And that one, it was interesting because it had like obviously chocolate and it had like mint ice cream, but it also had like a chocolate or like a mint. It was almost like a mint jelly, and it wasn't mint jelly like what you would have here that you usually put on like meat and stuff. It was like a sweet mint jelly. Um, it was interesting. And then like the week before I left, they discontinued it. I don't know if they discontinued it or if it was like a seasonal item and the season was over. But then I was like, I went to the restaurant and I'm like, oh, do you have the chocolate mint one? Because I didn't see it on the menu, and they're like, no. And I'm like, oh,
Oh,
okay. And in my
that
mind,
is a unique type of pain when
yeah.
your favorite thing at a restaurant is taken off the menu and you go there and you're like, I'll have the regular, and you're like, you don't have it. What do you mean you don't have it? Like,
Yeah.
please give me a moment. 1, to mourn. 2, now I need to read this entire menu because I don't know anything else on it.
Yeah. Because I was just like, oh, okay. I mean, I guess, because in my mind, I'm like, okay, I guess it's time to go back to Canada.
Yep.
The chocolate mint sundae at my local family
It's like,
restaurant
what am I
is
staying here
gone.
for anyways? No.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, I think that was, I don't know. It's also interesting in Japan because, so in North America, mint ice cream is usually colored green, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, white, sometimes white, but usually green, right?
Mhm.
So in Japan, because there's a lot more matcha flavored stuff, if you see something that's green, it's almost, and it's like a dessert, it's almost certainly going to be,
Yeah.
it's going to be matcha.
Mhm.
So if you've ever seen like pictures of Japanese chocolate mint stuff, you'll notice it's usually blue. They color it blue, I guess, to differentiate it
Yeah,
from the
just-
matcha stuff.
You need something.
Yeah.
Huh.
But there's definitely things I bought when I was there that I was like, ooh, this is a chocolate mint flavored thing. And then I like buy it and I'm like, oh, I like matcha. It's a good thing I like matcha because this is not what I expected it to be.
Cool. Yeah, because blue, despite the fact that blue as a color in the West is associated with things that are cool and cold, and mint is associated with cool and cold, that blue and mint are generally not associated, that you will get red more often because at least there's peppermint and candy canes and such. But that's usually going to be the combination of red and white. But that blue in particular has no, sorry, there is one. There's one application, pretty consistent one actually, of blue mint in the West, and that's toothpaste.
Yeah, I guess here too, there isn't a lot of green colors. Well, I guess it's maybe this pistachio, but like in terms of flavor, at least for stuff like ice cream, like again, like in Japan, they got matcha as the competitor. Here, there's maybe pistachio,
Yeah,
but that's the only competitor for green, right?
Yeah,
Aside from
and
mint.
at that point, pistachio is the competitor to mint, not the other way around. And mint is very much the king of green ice cream. But blue, in terms of ice cream in the West, that's cotton candy here.
Oh, yeah.
That's
or
cotton
like
candy or
bubblegum.
like, some other, usually like fair-related sweet stuff. That or blue raspberry.
Yeah. I think in Canada, that same place, Lower Seacord, they have a flavor called Super Kid. And Super Kid is like, it's an ice cream that's like a mix of like very bright colors. So it's like this like bright blue, this bright yellow, and like a bright pinkish red. And I think the flavors associated with it are like, I think the yellow is like banana and the red is like strawberry or raspberry or something. And I think
Almost
the blue
a
one
child
is
Neapolitan.
Yeah, and I think the blue is bubblegum. Yeah. But Super Kid is like, I mean, it's popular here to the point that like I feel like we have other ice cream places that like have been like kind of trying to crib that combination.
I can see that, yeah.
But yeah, it's usually like that's usually what I associate blue ice cream with, though, is that like is Super Kid. Like it's like a very like this is like bright kid colored stuff.
Yeah. Now I'm just sort of doing a mental inventory of ice cream flavors and combinations, because you mentioned that banana is part of that, and there's banana ice cream in the West, but it's not really a prevalent flavor.
Well, even then, I feel like banana for them, they probably just worked backwards. Like they were probably like, okay, we need the 3 primary colors in here, and we don't have anything that's especially kiddie that's yellow.
You're not going to give them
like
lemon ice cream or something. And
like bubblegum is pink. Yeah, bubblegum is pink, strawberries pink, like cotton candy is pink, like all the very kid colors are they're already, like there's nothing for yellow. So yeah, I think they just kind of probably, and it does, I think like the three distinct colors do actually taste different from what I remember. Like it does definitely feel like a mix of flavors rather than just like a thing that they colored after. But yeah, it does feel like with that flavor they just kind of worked backwards.
I can see
They
that.
picked their colors and worked backwards.
Yeah, you sort of paint yourself into a corner of, okay, well, we need to... The aesthetics are first here because with kids, and especially when you're trying to market a product like this, that the aesthetics are going to be first and that the taste isn't entirely going to be secondary in that it doesn't matter, but that kids are going to be less discerning usually anyways. Is it sweet? Does it taste good? Cool, great, you're set, that's fine. And with ice cream already, there's relatively few fail cases. As long as you don't put pistachio in there, you're gonna be good.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, I feel like there's very few flavors of ice cream that kids like hate.
Yeah.
Like maybe like dark chocolate won't be as popular,
Or coffee.
or like you said, pistachio. Yeah, coffee. But like, I don't know. I'm trying to think. Like, I feel like
You're safe with basically anything.
yeah, I feel like there's very few flavors that children like. Even the ones that are less popular with children, you're still gonna run into like the weird kid whose favorite flavor is like rum raisin or something. Like,
Yeah.
you're still going to run
There's
into
sugar in all of it, and that
Yeah.
certainly, there's kids who will like coffee ice cream, but then if you give them actual coffee, no, because coffee ice cream is barely coffee.
Yeah, coffee crisp chocolate bars in Canada are popular with all ages. Like, there's not really like although I guess they don't taste that much like coffee. They're more, I mean, they're more chocolate than anything else. But yeah, like it's not.
Yeah, but that with
Yeah,
yellow,
like-
your options are going to be very limited.
Yeah.
Banana's actually,
Coffee.
just think
crisp
about it,
good.
banana's an underutilized flavor, I feel.
What, coffee?
No,
Or banana?
No, banana. I feel like banana is an underutilized flavor that part of it's probably because it's a very distinct flavor, so it's probably more difficult to use in things. I don't know. I just feel like I don't see many banana flavored things.
Well, I don't know. I guess it's one of those things. I feel like when I talk to people, I feel like when it comes to like artificial banana flavoring, it's very polarizing. Because I personally don't mind like artificial banana flavored stuff, but I know
That's
some people
fair.
just really, really dislike it. Like it's a bit more polarizing than like like artificial strawberry, right? Or,
Yeah.
like, artificial watermelon.
Certainly.
But I think, let me think, like.
The channel mentions vanilla, and I feel like vanilla is one of the most intriguing ice cream flavors of all because vanilla has so many variants. That there's normal vanilla, there's French vanilla, there's creamy vanilla or whatever. I feel like the shades of vanilla, there's more variants of vanilla than any other ice cream flavor. That chocolate's going to be normal chocolate or dark chocolate. It's not going to change that much, and it's usually not going to taste too different from one ice cream chain to the next. But I know folks that can discern, all right, this is blank brand vanilla.
Oh yeah, like this is Baskin Robbins vanilla versus like this is like Ben and Jerry's vanilla. Yeah. I think the other thing with vanilla I find is that like if you do baking, you realize that there's a bit of vanilla in everything. Because vanilla extract is like, it's an ingredient in vanilla ice cream, presumably, but it's also like an ingredient in like almost everything else. Like, there's not a lot that you can bake without some amount of vanilla extract. So I feel like maybe that's why that was another interesting ice cream shift I saw in Japan, was vanilla is the default flavor in North America. But when I was there, the default flavor was default. Like, just like sweet soft cream was the default. Like, some places would have vanilla. It's not like vanilla was like non-existent, but like if you had ordered an ice cream, like if they just gave you ice cream and it wasn't like a flavor, if it was just like white, it would usually just be like soft cream.
Yeah,
like
the concept of soft cream, sweet cream is not something that existed in North America for a while. That it's become sort of a thing. It's not ubiquitous, but that's a really good point.
Yeah, just like the default flavor, I think it was just interesting. The default flavor was different. Like,
what do you mean that my ice cream tastes like cream? What the?
This
That's
is ice
weird.
cream flavored ice cream. Is that not what you asked for? Is this not what you want? Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how we got into talking about ice cream. That was like a long
I dragged us on that
the
tangent
ice
because
cream
we were talking
tangent.
initially about we got
Food.
to retail.
Yeah,
And then I
yeah.
mentioned I'd worked in an ice cream place, and that we got into retail because we were talking about customer service because of your customer service
Yeah.
voice. That's where I
Yes.
went. Yes.
Yeah, I was like, I mean, ice cream is a good tangent. Ice cream's a good tangent.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, no, customer service. I mean, I guess I don't hate doing customer service. I think the thing I didn't like with retail is having to sell stuff.
Mm.
And specifically having like targets and management who's like, please
Oh
make
no,
sure you
yeah.
are
If you're in a
yeah, make
type
sure
of
you're getting your numbers up. Yeah.
retail thing where you have actual number tracking, I
Mhm.
am fortunate and happy that I did not ever have to deal with that because I can imagine just working retail, even if you're not having to worry about numbers, is already going to be very taxing and stressful. But then if you
Mhm.
actually have quotas and stuff on top of it, ugh,
Yeah,
I'd
well, I
rather just
think
do
the thing
proper sales at that point.
yeah. Like, I'm not against customer service. I enjoy assisting people. And I'm not against advertising stuff. Like, if a company emailed me and was like, hey, would you like to promote our product? And if it was something that I was okay with promoting, then I would be like, yes, gladly.
Yeah, or,
But,
there were certain things of, you might
mhm,
be told, hey, this is the new thing, promote it a bit, push it a bit, but,
mhm.
we're not tracking your numbers of how many you personally sell of a thing, but when there
Yeah,
are
yeah.
numbers,
Well, because, like, when you're advertising something, right? A lot of it is just like, hey, this is a product you might like. And then it's kind of on them if they want to buy it or not, right? Whereas, like, with retail, with sales, it's like, okay, there is a direct connection between like whether you cause them to buy it, right? And
mhm,
that I just don't know if I like doing. Like I remember when I worked at a department store, I worked in the shoe department. And sometimes the shoe department, the thing with shoes, right, is that it was very weird because we were a department that like we got paid minimum wage, but we also got paid a commission. And shoes is a weird department to do by commission, right? Because like
yeah, that's not what I would
com-
expect to. Hmm.
Because compared to say something like, because our other commission departments were, I think, cosmetics and fragrance was commission, and suits was commission. So cosmetics is understandable because usually with cosmetics, when people come in, they come in with like a need, right? They
Yeah,
might not know what product they're looking for unless they've bought something from the brand before, but they'll come in and they'll be like, hey, I have dry skin, or I have like, eye bags or something. Do
yeah,
you have
or
something for
that
that?
you're
And
helping them
then
find the right shade at the very least.
yeah, like you're basically they're coming in with a problem and then you point them in the direction of whatever product is most likely to solve that, right? Whereas with and even with suits, right? Like people might come in they might have like a vague idea of what they want, but they'll be like, I'm going to a wedding next week, or like my
Yeah,
son is graduating and needs something for prom. Like it's something that's like, people
and
come in
there's
with a need,
and there's
but
one. It's a higher price point item, and that there's
mhm,
a
mhm,
couple of
mhm.
sort of specific things that you want to have in someone who is working at your suits department, whether it be, all right, they know how to take the measurements and do the alterations, or
Mhm.
they know the aesthetics of what is a good fitting suit, and
Yeah,
looking
yeah.
at someone, what type of cut or brand might be best suited, pun half intended, for them, and then potentially also
Mhm.
upsell of, all right, can we get a couple button-up shirts and a tie in here or something too, in a way that's not
Yeah.
going to be the same as when somebody walks in looking for a pair of jeans.
Yeah, but shoes is a weird department for that though, because
Yeah,
when people are looking for shoes, they usually come in with like a very clear idea of what they're looking for, right? Like they're like,
yeah,
I want these Adidas sneakers that I saw on Instagram, or like I want, this kind of shoe. So every so often, sometimes you have people with a more vague request, like they'd be like, hey, I'm looking for like a good sandal for the summer, or like I'm looking for like a good high heel for a wedding, or like winter boots. So like sometimes there would be more vague requests, but usually people have such a specific idea of what they have in mind that it's difficult to like upsell people on stuff.
yeah,
And it's also difficult to like persuade them to buy something else, right? Because like, they came with an idea of like, yes, I want to pay this much for this kind of shoe.
yeah.
And if you deviate too much from that, like just,
The-
nothing
There's no
happens,
room
right?
to
Like,
convince or sell it. For me, I don't usually go to a shoe place knowing, okay, I want this specific brand, this specific style, but say, all right, I need a new pair of sneakers. I know that I'm looking for sneakers. I'm not looking for boots. I know, all right, I'm not going to look for something with crazy bright colors, but I will usually just look at the stuff, on the wall and say, all right, I like these 2 or 3 distinctly. That this is, even if I didn't know exactly what I wanted walking in, I know these are what I want from these 2 or 3, and I'm going to just try them on whatever's the most comfortable. That's the winner. That's all there is to it. That it would take something really specific that I can't think of to upsell me and say, hey, actually, what if you got this sneaker instead?
and plus too, like, we're also very limited in terms of like, because I think the other thing too is that like shoes is something that people have to like feel comfortable in, right? Like it's even
Yeah.
more important than with clothes that your shoes feel comfortable.
Yeah, it's
So
very
yeah,
subtle.
like there's things where like if we don't have their size or if the shoe just doesn't fit right, like it doesn't matter how much
Yeah.
they like it. You can't talk somebody into buying something that doesn't fit them at all,
Yeah.
right? Especially with shoes, even more so than with clothes, right?
That sometimes you put on a
So-
pair of shoes and it's just like, okay, for whatever reason, like the tongue of the shoe is rubbing up against my calf in a way that is just not comfortable. I could have never known it without having tried it on, but I know having walked 15 steps in this, I will not like this shoe. And there's nothing you as a salesperson can do about that.
So yeah, that was kind of like a weird job. I did not enjoy it. Well, I mean, I guess I enjoyed it at first, but I left it because I did not enjoy it. So yeah, gladly since then, I don't think I've worked any retail jobs that required me to like upsell people. I've like avoided, even when I couldn't find other jobs, I've like avoided applying for things that like were too heavily sales based just because I'm like, I don't know, and also too, I think the other thing with shoes as well is that I think sometimes people assume you have more expertise than you really have, depending on where you're working. So I would get questions like, for instance, for winter boots, right? We get people who are like, hey, I just moved to Canada. This is my first winter here. I need the best winter boot possible. And I'm like, and then they would be like, at this price point. And I'm like, well, I don't know how to tell you that you're not going to find something good for that price point. Or I think there was also too as well, like, somebody once came in and they're like, hey, my wife is getting like knee surgery next week. What do you recommend would be a good pair of shoes for that? And I'm like, that is a question you should ask your doctor. Like,
Ask somebody with
I am-
knowledge in orthopedics.
yeah, like I am 19 years old and I'm being paid minimum wage. Like this is not something that I feel qualified to answer. But yeah, no, winter boots was a big one though, because like, I think some people, especially people who had not yet experienced Canadian winters, kind of had unrealistic expectations of how, because like, okay, if it is minus 30 degrees Celsius outside, nothing is going to save you. Like, it doesn't matter,
Yeah.
like, you could, there's a certain temperature point where, like, it doesn't matter.
The secret to
like,
that
how,
is just don't go outside.
yeah. Like there's a certain, I think a lot of people as well also would try and get the warmest boots possible regardless of their need, right? So like if you're somebody who like works outdoors or like goes outdoors a lot, like if you're into skiing or like snowshoeing or something, then yeah, by all means get the warmest boots if you're going to be outside for a long time. But if you're somebody who like works in an office and like the winter is mostly just like getting into your car and getting out of your car and like walking through a parking lot, and you don't spend a lot of time outdoors, you kind of keep inside, like you
don't
might
need
not
winter
need
boots to make the trek to and from the car. Make sure
Yeah,
that your
yeah.
shoes maybe, aren't super breathable
Well-
running shoes, so it's not
Mhm.
like really uncomfortable, but unless you're really anticipating that you're going to be under a foot of snow perpetually, and to be fair, there are some places like that, but
Oh no, where I lived was absolutely underneath
Oh.
a foot of snow perpetually.
okay then, well,
Yeah. It's not so much you don't need winter boots, it's more like you don't need the most expensive, top quality, like super warm winter boots. Like you probably don't need like the biggest one, right?
Yeah.
So that was kind of something I was like, I don't know how to tell people that, because a lot of people, they're like, yeah, I want the best thing. And it's like, well, you need the thing that suits your lifestyle.
Yeah, and
Just buy something that's gonna, something that's waterproof and that has enough grip that you're not gonna like slip if you take one step onto a patch of ice. But like, past there, it's not, if you're not outdoorsy, you might not need like
yeah,
the top of the line, you know?
yeah, the top of the line winter boots are for the people that are climbing mountains. Are you climbing a
Yeah,
mountain
yeah.
this winter? No? Okay. You can, congratulations, I'm gonna be able to save you some money. You don't need it that nice, but then at that point, if you're making a
Yeah.
commission, that's counterintuitive.
Yeah, yeah. But also too as well, like, I mean, I guess for Canadian winters, at least where I was, it wasn't always so much about like what you're doing as much as are you outside. So like if you're somebody who takes the bus, then you might need better boots because you're probably going to be standing outside longer
Yeah.
than somebody who is driving, right?
Mhm.
Or yeah, like if you're somebody who, walks to work, like you'll probably need better boots than somebody who doesn't. So like some of it was that, because where I'm from, let me look up average temperatures. I think I've done this on stream before. Previous Eggy City,
Eggsville, Egerton.
previous Eggy City, average temperature by month. So this is in Celsius. I'm not going to convert to Fahrenheit because I can't do that off the top of my head. Average temperature in January is high of -5 Celsius, low of -14 Celsius.
Oh my.
Yeah, average for February is a high of -3, low of -13. So like, this was cold Canadian city. This was like, winter is cold, winter is long. Like temperatures don't hit the double digits until late April, kind of thing.
For those of you who use the silly system known as Fahrenheit, -13°C is approximately 9 degrees Fahrenheit. It's cold.
Yeah. Yeah, and let me search, because where I am now, New Eggy City, it's a little further south and it's a little closer to the water, I think. So it's a little more temperate. So, but even then, it's still somewhat cold. Like average for January, high of 0, low of -7. Average for February, high of 1, low of -6. So, significantly warmer. Still pretty cold, but I guess it depends on what your standards of cold are. Because, like, I remember when I went to MAG last year, because anybody who was there last year, it was really cold at MAG last year. Like, that weekend in
MAGFest is
DC,
held
there was just, like...
just outside Washington, D.C. for context.
Yeah.
For folks,
So there was, like...
East Seaboard, the East gets real winter. It's not Canadian winter, though.
Yeah, yeah. But, I don't know, because MAGFest, the impression I was under is that it was, like, a pretty big cold snap that was going on that weekend. Because, like, even people who were in the area were like, no, this is very cold. But to me, I was like, I'm coming in from Canada. I'm like, yeah, this is normal. This is, like, maybe even nice. Like, the temperature was above 0. So, like, that's... It was above 0 at some point. So this is, like, pleasant. I think it was the wind that made it worse.
I was about to say, the issue there is it's windy because it's
Yeah.
in National Harbor, Maryland. It is right on the water, so it's prone to being gusty, and just the way that area is... the wind is going to do a lot worse than the actual air temperature.
Yeah, but that was kind of like actually, let me search up for like Washington DC average temperature by month, just to like compare it with
DC temperature now is 28 degrees Fahrenheit, -2°C.
Okay, that's, well, I mean, I guess it's the evening. I'm looking by averages. So average high in January is high of 7, low of 0. Average in February is high of 9, low of 2. Okay, so that's like significantly warmer.
Yeah.
That's significantly warmer than
It's
is
not
what
negative.
I'm used to in the winter.
Mostly.
Yeah,
it's not,
like,
it's
this
not
is...
mostly negative.
Yeah, and the Californians were basically icicles. Oh god, yeah.
Yeah.
There were some people I was talking to that were from like California or like further down south, and they were not having a good time. I think the definition of a winter coat in like California is very different of a definition of a winter coat from Canada. Like, even like when I was in Japan, like I studied in Kobe, so that's like just outside of Osaka, so it's not like super far south, but it's like, further south than any Canadian city that I've lived in. And it was, I think in the winter, usually around daytime, it was around 10 degrees Celsius. Nighttime, it would usually drop because it was mostly the sun that gave the heat, right? So as soon as the
Yeah.
sun went down, it would get a lot colder. But I didn't have to buy a proper winter coat. Like the coat that I bought that I used for winter there, and it was fine. Like it was a fine coat. Um, but in Canada, this would be considered like a fall coat or a spring coat. Like it's not this thing. You would not go out in the winter with that. You need something much thicker. But also, I'm glad I didn't bring my proper winter coat to Japan because that would have taken
It
a
would
lot
have
of
been
suitcase
boiling.
space. And yeah, and also I would have barely used it. Like, there was very few days where like during the daytime it was cold enough that I would have needed it. Like usually just wearing like that one like kind of spring jacket type coat, or even like that spring type. Like if it got colder, maybe that coat with like a sweater layered underneath. It was usually fine. It was not. It was not cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did not go to Hokkaido though. I feel like Hokkaido is probably. Well, let me check actually average temperatures for Sapporo because like Sapporo is probably. Oh, okay, that's not too bad. So January high of -1, low of -8. February high of 0, low of -7. Okay, so
Still
that's like
warmer
kind of
than
on
Old Eggy
par.
City.
Yeah, it's kind of on. This seems to be kind of on par with where I'm living right now, actually. This seems to be roughly the same. So it's like, it's cold, but it's not like inhabitable cold. Yeah, okay, yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to MagFest.
Yeah.
Yay. But it is actually
I have to
getting pretty
decide what
late.
to wear.
And I'm realizing that
Yeah.
Ryuwood is later than me. And we've been at this for
Yes.
over 3 hours already. Time flies. It's
Yep.
been super fun. We went a lot deeper on a smaller number of topics than I expected. But I like that a lot because, you know, we got to do some really deep dives on fashion. We wound up on the sort of incidental customer service
Ice cream tangent.
ice cream tangent, which is always fun.
The ice cream tangent.
Didn't have a chance to talk about some things like, you mentioned to me that you like musical theater a lot, and that's something I really like. Also, there's anime, which we didn't get to too much, but we're going to have the chance to do so this weekend because I'm having my 4th anniversary charity marathon this Saturday and Sunday, and you got in just under the wire here, and that I always invite all my past guests. It doesn't matter if I had them on the show 3 years ago or 3 days ago. So you're actually going to be back on this channel as I double-check the massive schedule.
It is Sunday, I believe.
Yes, Sunday, 6 to 7 p.m. Pacific time. So that is going to be 9 to 10 p.m. Eastern time. Somebody actually reached out to me 5 minutes before we went live, Eggy, that I hadn't heard from, being like, hey, I'm so sorry. I am actually available this weekend. Here's my availability. And thank goodness it was on one of the hours that I'm able to put people in. I'm at 55 guests. This is going to be my biggest anniversary charity event yet. It's going to be a lot. I think last year I had a couple over 40. It's a lot. It's going to be super fun. It's going to be benefiting Child's Play charity as it is every year. And we'll definitely be able to hopefully get some of the topics that we didn't get to tonight then. But before we say goodbye for tonight, I do always have a couple last questions that I ask all my guests. And first, I actually have to change now because officially, Happy New Year, folks. And I always say, what do you want to get done by the end of the year? And that when it gets to, October, November, December, it's all right, what are the last couple things you want to do before we wrap up the year? But here we are in January. I get to ask, what do you want to do? Do you have any goals for 2025?
Okay, I actually just did a stream about this.
Oh, how perfect.
Like a week or so ago. Let me pull up because I divided my goals into like easy, medium, hard. So easy is stuff that either is like just tasks I could do in an afternoon, whereas hard is something that would take like a lot of, time and money and planning. So easy stuff I had move some of my scenes to a laptop. That can be done in an afternoon. Finish Majora's Mask and play Ocarina of Time. I am probably like 60% of the way through Majora's Mask. So I feel like I could probably, if I can keep at it, probably be able to do both by the end of the year. Figure out multi-streaming. I tried using Restream earlier this year, but I couldn't get it to work the way I wanted it to. So
I really need to get on that myself.
yeah, I will have to figure that out. I just put in collaboration, which I guess I'm already
Haha,
accomplishing
success!
here right now. Set up Stream Deck. I already set that up. Fix sleep schedule. That's not related to streaming. Exercise. That's also not related to streaming. Set up proper hand cam and get a bigger desk. These are kind of linked because right now my desk is like very small, very cramped. I have not done a knitting stream in months because I just don't have a place where I can
knitting.
Yeah, because I haven't done it in a long time because I don't have like a proper place to set up for it. I have a bunch of like hand cam stream ideas, but I can't do any of them because I physically don't have the space on my desk. Like I just barely fit the 2 monitors and the keyboard. I have to have like the mouse on like this little cubby underneath because I can't put the mouse on the desk. So I want to buy a bigger desk. A bunch of other stuff will have to happen before that. I have one specific desk in mind from IKEA that would be like, it would be big enough, and it's one of those ones that can like, you can adjust the height of, and it's like, you know, with a button. So like if I want to have it as a standing desk, like if I'm like recording or doing karaoke or something and I want to be able to stand up to sing.
I got one of those a couple years back there. It was one of those things that I was like, am I actually going to use it? And yeah, you ended up using it.
Yeah, well, I think I had one at work. That was what sold me on it, is my previous job. That was the kind of desk they had at the office, and I liked it a lot. And I'm like, man, I wish I could have this at home. But yeah, if it was a bigger desk, I could fit both of my monitors. I could fit everything else that needs to fit. And I would have enough space to do like a hand cam stuff. For medium, I had upgrade computer, get Twitch partner, maybe. Get a new outfit for my 3D, like my Vroid model, which again, this isn't really I mean, I guess it's medium for me in that I have to come up with the design and idea, but like, it's Golden Kenji who made my Vroid model, who would actually be doing all the actual work of making it. Do a convention panel, cause like, I think I had 2 separate goals for conventions, cause there's like doing a convention panel as like somebody who signed up to do a panel, and then there's doing a convention panel as like an invited, as a guest. So in medium, I have do convention panel like as somebody who signed up to do a panel. I have a few ideas in mind, and then I put in make more polished covers, like with proper, because a lot of my covers have been like, they do feel very, I don't want to talk down on my stuff too much, but I feel like I do tend to kind of slap them together, because it's like, you know, I record the song, and then I have one piece of art, and I put that in the video, and I just put lyrics to it, and I'm like, there's got to be something more I can do. So something more polished, I think I'd like to put out this year. And then for difficult, so this is the stuff that ranges from like basically impossible to probably doable, but I'd have to try a little and think a little harder. So 3D live concert. I know friends. I have friends who have done like full body 3D motion tracking, so I'm gonna have to ask them like how they went about doing that. Panel at a convention as an invited guest. Again, that's something I would have to apply myself a little more. And then Eggy merch. Cause like merch is something that I'm like, I know it's not that difficult to do because a lot of people do it, but in my mind, it's just like the logistics. I'm like, oh God. Cause like, I'm not concerned about getting stuff made. I feel like getting stuff made feels like the easy part. Like, you know, like getting like keychains and stuff like manufactured. That doesn't feel like the hard part for me. The hard part is the logistics of actually like sending it and making sure that everybody who orders one receives it. That's the part where I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
So yeah, those, I think that's my long list. I'm 100% not going to accomplish all of those, but I will do my best to accomplish at least some of them.
Yeah, very good set of goals.
Yeah, can't wait for Eggy to be
I think the vast majority of those are very, very realistic, and obviously you've already accomplished several already.
Yeah, I mean, they're all in the easy category, but like, yeah. No, convention panel, I had an idea for a panel last year, because I remember I was sitting, and this has happened to me on a few occasions, where I will go to a panel that's like VTubers 101, right? And it will be hosted by a VTuber. And I think the thing is that you know how we're all kind of in social media bubbles and we assume that things that are common knowledge for us are common knowledge for everybody else. So what tends to happen is that the panelist will say something like most HoloLive members use live 2D models. And the person I see like somebody in the audience pulling out their phone to Google like what multiple words in that sentence mean. So
Yeah.
like what I want to do is like intro to VTuber, but like absolute base level. Like, starting with like, what is HoloLive? What is a live 2D model? What is VTube Studio? Like just like the very, very like baseline basics of VTubing for somebody who's coming in completely blind, knowing absolutely nothing except maybe what a VTuber is, sort of, maybe, kind of.
Yeah. It's interesting. I feel like that's something that can happen at every convention, but I also feel like a lot of conventions have done it, and I don't know if we're past the point where they're likely to be accepted simply because they're. It's logical enough, but it's also generic, and there's also the risk that you would be competing against other people with essentially the same concept, because
Well, I think
it is
it
pretty easy
depends
for
on the
most folks to do an
convention.
intro, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think because I've done similar panels for Lolita fashion before. So that's
That's what
why
I was going to
like
suggest, because I feel like that's a
yeah,
lot
yeah.
more niche.
Well, I mean, I think it's more niche. I think the thing with Lolita is a lot of people know what it is, like have a basic idea of what it is, but don't always know the specifics.
Mm,
Whereas I feel like with VTubing it might be the other way around. Like maybe people have heard of a VTuber, but they might not have like a solid idea of like what VTubing actually is.
yeah.
Um So yeah, I just want what I want to do is maybe if I phrase it differently, like I've thought of maybe doing it as like intro to VTuber technology or something, like or like
Okay.
getting started as an indie VTuber. Like if I spin it differently, but just like a very like base level, like I feel like there's a lot of gaps that need to be filled in because like I feel like a lot of the like intro to VTubing panels that I've seen have been it definitely feels like there's stuff that we have forgotten most people don't know, I guess.
Yeah. No, I think
I
that
keep
I think
yeah.
the technology angle is actually a really good one, because that's something not only for the attendee that is super useful, but also for the
Mhm.
people at the convention evaluating what panels they want to accept. Technology is
Mhm.
always something that's going to appeal and seem more different and more specialized, and it's
Yeah, yeah.
just not a word that they encounter as much. So they're going to be more
Mhm.
likely to accept it. And also, it just, well, branding sound point
Yeah.
sounds fancier. It sounds more more specialized.
Mhm.
And to be fair, it is. Um, but I think having the angle of technology, and you can still include broader jargon education as part of that,
Mhm.
but that when writing up an application to a convention, having the technology angle, I think, would be really useful.
Mhm. I also think too, as well, it would depend on the convention because, like, I know Canadian conventions usually they're much smaller, so I feel like the process for signing up for a panel for one is very different. Because I think, like, the biggest anime convention in North America, or not North America, in Canada, is Anime North,
Yeah.
and I still think that's smaller than a lot of American conventions. So like even when I've had I know when I went to a convention in Vancouver this year and I was with a few like I was with a group and Bodega was in that group, and for me it was like that convention was like, yes, this is an average size convention, this is normal convention. And then like Bodega's like, oh, what a quaint little local convention, because like she's from New York City and like she she's gone to big anime conventions before, like she's gone to like I'm around people who have been to like Anime Expo and
Well,
like
Anime Expo is a beast unto itself. That
huge.
even
Yeah, yes.
even in the
So,
U.S., there's
mhm,
the biggest anime convention is Anime Expo. Then it drops off by about 50,000, and then you have Anime NYC. And then
mhm,
it drops off by about 10, 15,000. There's a good chunk that are hovering between the 30 to 40, 45-ish thousand.
mhm.
And doing a quick Google search, Anime North 2024 had 36,847 paid attendees and are capping at 36.5 this year to prevent overcrowding. So It is still. I'm not 100% sure,
Now
but
keep
I
in
would
mind,
spitball that
yeah.
Anime North is probably, if you were to take all anime conventions in North America, it would probably be in the top 10, top 15. Very least, my guess would be like somewhere in the 8, 9, 10 range. But that
Now
my
keep
guess
in
is
mind,
there's a
Anime
pretty
North is the
quick,
biggest.
yeah, and I was gonna say there's probably a
Yeah.
pretty sharp drop off after Anime North.
hmm Yeah, like I don't know what the numbers for the other ones. Like, let me see. What are the other ones I've been to? Otakuthon in Montreal. Otakuthon, attendance 2024. Okay, so Otakuthon 2024 is about, that was like 36,000 about. Let me see. Annie Revo in Vancouver. Can't get numbers for that. Okay, so over 20,000 attendees. So smaller than Otakuthon. What are some other major ones? I think there's one in Calgary. I can't remember what it's called though, so I can't really Google it. But yeah, no, in Canada they're substantially smaller, but I think that also makes panels like substantially less competitive. So that I think it kind of evens out.
Yeah. I know there was a website that used to actively track anime convention attendance and would actually publish an annual top 10 list of just, by the number of folks, and they would actually tabulate, all right, this convention reported turnstile, which is a system of counting that counts people by day. So some conventions will actually artificially inflate their numbers, that they will say that they had 30,000 people turnstile, which means they had, if it was a 3-day convention, 10,000 people. Because if you had a weekend badge, you were counted for each day. So the jargon term for how many unique attendees is warm bodies. So if you see, all right, this convention had 16,000 warm bodies, but then another convention says they had 20,000 turnstile, the 16,000 warm body convention is probably bigger.
Interesting.
But they stopped tracking the top 10 a while back, like 2019 or so was, I think, the last year they did that. So I don't know offhand, but I know ones that are going to be about Anime North size in North America would be like, I think Anime Week in Atlanta is approximately there. Anime Central, Anime Boston, and Otakon are probably going to be the ones around that size. But there's a couple others that have been growing that I could see getting close, but I don't think are quite that big. But my guess, there's Anime Expo, and like I said, then there's a sharp drop off to the second one, and I think it's about the same in Canada for Anime North at the top with 36,000, and then sharp drop off. My guess is, we were saying the 20,000 range.
Yeah. I think also, too, wouldn't it make more sense to just count by number of badges sold? Because, like, even in the rare situation where a bunch of people buy badges but then don't show up.
That becomes difficult because if you have a weekend badge, but what if there's, somebody who only buys a Sunday badge that you can't necessarily, for attendance purposes, count someone as a Sunday badge the same? And then you could... It would be just as easy to fudge the numbers the other way and say, okay, if this is how we're going to play the game, that we only sell day badges now. You can buy a 3-pack of day badges for this bulk price that was going to be the same price as your 3-day badge anyways. But now we get to say that we've sold 3 badges.
That's fair. That's
now
fair.
It's just turnstile with more steps.
Or even if you don't do that, like, you would be like, oh, well, somebody isn't available Saturday, so they only bought badges for like Friday and Sunday, and then like, do they? Yeah, you're right. Do they?
Yeah, and then it's just difficult to track, and that's where turnstile comes in, because it does track. All right, somebody bought a 3-day badge, but did they only come on Friday and Saturday? Well, that's assuming the turnstile is being implemented properly. Some conventions will just count based on sales, and even if somebody doesn't attend all 3 days with their 3-day badge, that just gets counted as 3, because doing good and proper tracking is very difficult and expensive. You usually only get that at cons that are really,
Yeah.
really big. The ones that will have you like tap your badge or scan it because it can track it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's no feasible way for a 1,000 attendee convention even to
Well,
have somebody
even
counting and tracking, all right, how many people walked in the door this day versus the next day.
well, I think also too, just like that also depends on the venue as well. Like, I think people who watch me have heard my Anime North tangent before, but when it comes to Anime North, I have nothing against the organizers. It's like a perfectly, in terms of like how it's run, it's fine. I hate the venue. The venue it uses a convention center, which itself has like 2 buildings. Then it uses the hotel across the street as well, and I think a few other hotels in the area. So you're gonna, usually if you go to Anime North, you spend a lot of time walking outside. But this also makes turnstile impossible because you are working with like 4 buildings.
Yeah.
It's also a very popular convention to do. I mean, people call it like lobby conning, where you like don't buy a pass, but you just like show up and hang out.
The industry term
It's
for
very
that is
easy.
ghosting.
Yeah, but it's very easy to do that at Anime North, right? Because
Yeah.
if like a lot of events are happening outside, or like a lot of people are just hanging out outside because it's near the building, like it doesn't cost you anything to go stand in a parking lot, right?
Yep.
So that oftentimes there might be a lot of people that go and they're just outside. But yeah, no, the thing with outdoor is that it gets very, if the weather is bad, the entire event is bad. I prefer like conventions where they're all inside one building, because
Yeah.
like, yeah, you might have to get from the hotel to the convention center, but like if the weather sucks, it's not going to ruin your whole day. Like I like the Gaylord, like the venue for MAG, I like a lot,
That
because
is
it's like, yeah, everything.
actually just my favorite venue
Yeah,
in
it's
the country,
or
which is in the world, really. I love that place.
yeah.
It's so good.
I think the venue for Otakuthon in Montreal. Now, mind you, I haven't been to Otakuthon for a few years. It was also very good because it was like a central location. So it was near Chinatown. So it was like one place, one building. It's accessible by transit. You can, like, there's lots of hotels in the area, and even if you're staying somewhere further away, like I said, it's accessible by transit, so like it's not like you have to worry about getting there. There's lots of restaurants in the area because it's right next to Chinatown. So it's, because that's the other issue with Anime North, is that it's in a very like secluded area. So you end up with like everyone trying to squeeze themselves into the same 8 restaurants because
Yeah.
There's nowhere else to
There's
go
just no
unless
other
you
options.
drive.
That's the biggest
Yeah.
struggle for many conventions, of just
Mhm.
you're limited by the venue options. And even
Yeah.
more than that, you're not just limited by the venue options, you're limited by the venues themselves and what days they are going to be available. Because if there's some dental convention that wants to rent out their thing, or some
Mhm.
automobile parts manufacturer trade show that's going to rent it out, that they might just say, all right, you can't have certain dates. And that if this convention started out in one hotel and, we had 1,000 people at our first convention 20 years ago, and we just grew bigger and bigger. And, well, we ran out of space at this one, so we went to a bigger venue. But then we got to the biggest venue in the city, and we still grew. And moving cities is tough.
Yeah,
One,
yeah.
because if you move cities, you'll probably shed a good chunk of your attendees that statistically, except for a couple of, giant asterisk conventions, like, people will travel more to Anime Expo than basically any other convention. Most other conventions, if it isn't the biggest, the brand name, you're going to draw most of your attendees from within driving distance. Most people aren't going to
Also-
get a flight.
Yeah. Also, too, I imagine people might not want to take a risk, because usually if you run it in the same place every year, people are familiar with the area. So, like, they know where the good hotels are, they know where the good restaurants are.
Yeah.
Like, whereas if you're in an area they're not familiar with, they might just kind of, like, forgo it just because they're like, well, I don't really know where to stay, I don't know what to book, I don't actually know what's close. Like, so I can totally see that, yeah.
And that, all right, we're now in the biggest venue in the area and it's still full, so the option is move cities or start to splinter and take over more hotels, more small venues. And most conventions are going to choose the latter just because it ends up being easier than moving. And especially in certain places, the question becomes, all right, even if we were to move, is there a nearby place to move, or would we have to move 2 hours? Where is the next biggest city that has a convention center that is biggest than the biggest one in our current city? And there's, it is a very strange type of market, convention centers, event venues, because you can't just have random new entrants. You can't have somebody be a startup and have a giant convention center that can hold 40,000 people. It has to be a city-level infrastructure thing that is approved and built usually over multiple years or renovated over multiple years. And if it doesn't exist, it's not going to just suddenly pop up. It's not going to exist short of many, many high-scale, actually governmental-level decisions.
Yeah. So, but either way, my point is that I don't like the Anime North venue, and it would also make Turnstile impossible because it's impossible to track. Like, it is also very funny though with Anime North because it's the area it's in. It's near the airport, so the hotels in the area, they're airport hotels. So I feel like Anime North is like probably the convention where I see the highest cases of random people flying in and just like walking straight into like crowds of cosplayers when they enter their hotel because they didn't realize this was happening this weekend.
I love seeing the civilians who don't know what they're walking into just sort of get blindsided. And you'll get this especially at smaller cons that don't occupy their entire hotel or giant venue. That back in the day, MagFest did not take up the entire Gaylord, so there were cases where there was an astronomy symposium one year. There was a year where the Washington football team had their media days there. So there was just one of the days was all burgundy and gold, and there was a whole bunch of sports folks there, and it was very crowded. And then every so often you hear the horror cases of where the venue didn't have the foresight to realize that you probably shouldn't have your anime convention and then also have the other client occupying your venue being a religious organization.
Oh, yeah. I think I've also seen with Anime North 2 as well that, because I think there's a part of it that is a highway exit that's near a highway exit. And I remember there's an area near that highway exit that's just like this grassy area. And it's a very popular area for cosplayers to do photo shoots because it's just a big patch of long, unkept grass, right? So like if you're cosplaying like a fantasy character or something, like it allows you to take photos at an angle where the buildings can be easily cropped out of the shot. So, but I remember there was the year that Final Fantasy 15 came out. And it was the one that like opens with the guys pushing the car down the road, right? And there was so many, like, you would exit the highway that year and you would run into like 5 different groups of Final Fantasy cosplayers pushing, like doing some kind of photo shoot where they're pushing their car. That was like, it was just like another funny sight because it's like the random people running into anime convention attendees does not usually happen within cars, but it did this, like that specific year it did.
Yeah. I love conventions. Conventions are great.
Yeah. But yes, we have tangented off this question for a very long time.
Well, hey, it's later for you than it is for me. But in the name of practicality, the last question that I ask all of my guests is, what does being a VTuber mean to you? And that's not asking for the definition. We've talked a lot about, definitions, semantics, classifications. But for this, different people do VTubing for different reasons. Different people get different things from VTubing. Some folks have said VTubing lets me get in touch with my inner child. It lets me embrace my inner actor. And some will have very deep emotional connections to their model. Others will say, I just like entertaining, and VTubing lets me ignore the laws of physics and lets me not wear pants. And there's no wrong way to be a VTuber. So for you, Eggy, what does being a VTuber mean to you?
Okay, on a personal level, I love yapping. And aside from streaming, like there's not really any other form of, not even entertaining, but like hobbies that allow you to just yap, right? Like, where you can just talk, you can go off on tangents. Like, that's the point. That's all you do. Like, when I worked retail, especially because I tended to work like really quiet hours when there wasn't many customers. So I would spend a lot of time just like having inner monologues where I just like imagine that somebody just imagine somebody asked me about something I'm passionate about and I just had to explain it to them and like what would I say? And before streaming, those inner monologues just stayed inside my head, right?
Prior to that, the only thing that you could do was get employed at a radio station, and that was both competitive and very restrictive in terms of technology.
Yeah, so that's the first thing. Is personally, this is the yapping venue. I think on a broader level, though, like I think VTubing is the final form. It is like the peak form of being an internet personality, I think, because like I don't think anything outside of VTubing really allows you to have this much freedom with how you present yourself, right? Because like you are, I mean, for the most part, I mean, there's varying levels of this, but like you get to decide your name, which I mean, you always could online, but you know, you get to decide what you look like. You get to decide what your, you know, all your assets, what all your, just aesthetically, what your channel looks like. You get to decide what your, I mean, again, varying degrees of control. If you are in a company, you might have less control over this. If you're indie, you might have more, but like, you know, in real life, you are limited by certain things, right? Like you are limited by how you look. You are going to be limited by, you know, how your house looks. Like if you're streaming with a webcam, like people will see behind you. Whereas VTubing, I think, is like the final form, right? Like you can fully, you don't have to, but if you choose to, you can fully divide yourself from real life, which is something that I think cannot quite be accomplished by anything else. I don't know if that made sense.
No, it makes perfect sense, and that just the axes of creativity that VTubing allows is, like you're saying, just far greater than any other type of content creation, any other type of entertainment. That, like I mentioned, one thing that VTubers can do that other content creators can't is ignore the laws of physics. We can just do that if we want to. If you want to, like, have physical comedy be part of your content, you can do that in VTubing far easier than you can with IRL streaming or stage production. We're able to make our own movie magic here. And like you were saying, just aesthetically in terms of outfit and everything, that you can decide if you want it to be a near representation of your physical self, something entirely different, something fantastical, something realistic, or anything in between. And yeah, that it's sort of that final form, that apex of being on the internet and of being a nerd in many ways.
I think as well, like, I didn't really take an interest in streaming, even in watching streamers, until I got into VTubers. And I think some of that too, just like in terms of doing streaming, I don't think I would ever want to be like a face cam streamer. I do not envy the face cam streamers. Because if somebody, like, I guess when I'm streaming as a VTuber, right, there's enough distance, like, you know, I am the Eggy. The Eggy is me, but there's enough separation between us that, you know, if somebody comes in and tells me that my model is ugly, I do not feel like, I might feel offended on behalf of like my art mama who made the model, but like I don't take that as a personal offense, right? Whereas like if I was like a face cam streamer and somebody came into my chat and was like, "Wow, you are ugly," I would take that as a personal offense, right? Because it is. And even if they said something like, you know, if somebody comes into my chat and is creepy towards me, I feel like I can brush it off. Whereas I feel like if I was a face cam streamer, if somebody came into my chat and started being creepy, I would have a harder time with that, right? So yeah, I do not envy the face cammers. They have their own set of issues, right?
Yeah.
I just, it's not something I think I could ever really do. I think I would go insane. The idea that people would like be there picking apart your appearance as opposed to VTubing where people can, people can pick apart your model's appearance or people can pick apart your voice, but that's not quite the same
It's
thing,
not as
right?
personal. It doesn't feel.
Mhm.
Yeah, even if the bad intent of the person saying it might be the same, it doesn't hit as hard.
Mhm. Mhm.
I always
Right.
ask that at the end of the show because, while I never know exactly what people will say, I feel like the answers always make sense, and that I was saying there's no wrong reason to be a VTuber, and that even from our conversation, the answers I get,
Okay.
like I said, they always make sense, and
We've been going for this long.
yeah.
Let me pull out the other one.
Please stand by.
Oh goodness. Oh goodness. This is a terrible thing to happen right at the end. I cannot hear you. Give me a second. I have to reconnect. I put in one Bluetooth earbud at a time, and then the first one just completely died.
Well, while she's taking care of that, 5M and I Eat Cheerios, thank you for the follows. I know that was a while back. We got so deep in conversation that things got sidetracked. But if you are still here, thank you so much for dropping on by.
Okay, I'm still here. I'm still here. I'm so sorry. I'm still here. I'm still here. I'm still here. Okay. Sorry, my headphone died. I had one headphone. I was wearing Bluetooth. I was wearing Bluetooth headphones, and one of them died, and so I had to connect the other one because we'd just been going that long. We went
Sign
so
of a good
long,
show.
my headphone died.
But also sign that, all right, we had the timing down really close. We were this close.
Yeah.
But
yes,
seriously, this has been so much fun. Really appreciate all the conversation, all the yapping, all the insight, and looking forward to talking with you more this weekend. I do actually have one last question. That's who would you like us to raid?
Ooh, who's on? Let me see who's on. Oh, okay, I know who we can raid. My friend and Vroid model maker, Golden Kenji, along with Beba, or Bodega Red, they're streaming the House in Fata Morgana. Would we be able to raid into that? Because
yes, absolutely.
I like my friends, and I like
Kenji or Bodega.
Oh, wait. Okay, hold on. They are. Never mind. Don't raid them because they're about to raid into somebody else. Whoops.
Oh.
They're just ending. They're just wrapping up. Let me see who else is on. Oh, we could raid into... Are you familiar with Maple Winters?
Yes, she was on a couple months ago.
Yep, we could probably raid into Maple. It looks like Maple's on. And it looks like she is not right about to raid, so I think we're safe. We're safe.
Cool. Awesome. Well, folks in chat, I don't have any emotes of my own, so spam some of Eggy's. Been seeing them all night, and they are always lovely. Love the squibbies, love the spins. I feel like the Eggy spin is probably the most popular. Yeah.
The Eggy spin is the newest one.
Yeah.
Eggy spin is my newest emote. I think my most popular one is still the Wiggly, but I'd have to check.
Wigglies are a classic. I am so happy that Wigglies have seemingly stood the test of time. They might not be quite as common as they used to be, but I feel like they have actually achieved standard status, that most people are going to have a Wiggly probably. It might not be their most used emote, but that it's such a thing now that people recognize and like, oh yeah, it's a Wiggly. And I remember actually being shown like the original Populio Wiggly for the first time on one of my first ever shows. Like it was planning, I think it was with Phoebe actually, and like it was single digit episodes, like early. And to see them still around now makes me very happy because I like them. Wigglies are good.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to be an early adopter of Wigglies. One of the earliest Wiggly makers. One of them happened to be somebody who was watching me pretty frequently. So I remember at some point I got like a DM with just the Wiggly, and they're like, "Here for you," and it was like the first Eggy Wiggly because I have two of them now.
What a gift! What a precious gift!
It was the first one. It's like, for you, and I'm like, what is this? And then they showed me like examples that other VTubers had, and I'm like, I see, the Wiggly.
Thank you. I will treasure it
and now
always.
I have two of them.
Awesome. Well, Be sure to send Maple lots of spins, lots of wigglies, and more. Let them know that Eggy sent ya. I will see you all in, oh dear, 4 days. Ha ha ha. I have work to do. I have a lot of work to do, but seriously, this has been so much fun. Eggy, thank you so much for making time. I look forward to seeing you on Sunday. But thank you to everyone in chat again. Really appreciate you, even if you've just been here for a couple minutes, if you got rated in or been here since the pre-show. It's always very nice and humbling when folks go out of their way to stop by and be here. So thank you so much. And thank you again, Eggy. Hope you had a good time and get ready to raid on into Maple. So have a great rest of your day, everybody. This has been VTuber Talk. I'm Jay, and I will see you all this weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye bye. Bye.